I apologized for the appearance of my daughter-in-law, which my mother-in-law found displeasing. During my father-in-law's 60th birthday celebration, she reprimanded me in front of our relatives, lamenting not just her lack of attractiveness, but also her perceived incompetence. It was truly humiliating. I found myself wondering where my usually supportive husband was during this ordeal. Was he occupied with our daughter? His absence was conspicuous. Upon my arrival at my in-laws' home, feeling ready to enjoy the festivities, my mother-in-law suddenly complained of chronic back pain, rendering her unable to participate. Consequently, she entrusted all party preparations to me. As the event progressed, she continued to denigrate me in front of our gathered relatives, casting a shadow over what should have been a joyous occasion. It felt as though the lively atmosphere had turned somber, resembling more of a funeral than a celebration. Then, breaking the uncomfortable silence, my father-in-law stood up. "Is that all you have to say?" Little did anyone know, this seemingly innocuous question would set off a chain of events beyond imagination. My name is Sarah, and I'm 35 years old. 6 years ago, I tied the knot with Michael, my husband, who happened to be 3 years my junior. Together, we have a delightful 5-year-old daughter. However, despite the joy of our family, there was always a shadow lurking in the form of my mother-in-law's disapproval. She harbored resentment towards me for being older than her son. Every holiday visit, be it New Year's, Memorial Day, or any national celebration, was tainted by her cutting remarks aimed at me, often in the absence of my husband. "I wish I had a younger, livelier, and more attractive daughter-in-law, not someone adorned with age spots like you," she would say with a sharp tongue. "Do I really look that old?" "Yes, very much so. Haven't you noticed your own reflection in the mirror every day?" Receiving criticism about one's appearance can be deeply hurtful, especially for women. Despite this, I tried to brush it off, considering our limited interactions occurring only a few times a year. However, instead of diffusing the situation, my nonchalant response seemed to further provoke her. "You're remarkably thick-skinned for a woman of your age. It's irritating how you remain unaffected by my words. You lack even a trace of humility," she continued, her words growing harsher with each exchange. Yeah," was all I could muster in response. How should I confront my mother-in-law, whose words always leave me speechless? In front of my husband, she wears a facade of kindness, concealing her true nature. It's as if he's oblivious to her mistreatment of me. Yet, if I were to express my frustrations, I fear I'd bear the blame. So, I've endured in silence. Visiting their home with her presence feels like carrying a heavy burden. Despite this, it was a significant occasion, my gentle father-in-law's 60th birthday celebration. With numerous relatives gathering for the grand event, I chose to attend. Though my father-in-law is reserved, his subtle acts of kindness envelop me when my mother-in-law's hurtful words weigh me down. He gently approaches, offering solace with his words. "Sarah, if you're struggling, please don't hesitate to confide in me. I'd like to offer my support if that's all right with you." I couldn't help but wonder if my father-in-law was aware of the harassment I endured from my mother-in-law. Perhaps he chose to refrain from openly supporting me to shield me from further mistreatment behind the scenes. To honor our compassionate father-in-law, our family embarked on a 3-hour journey early in the morning to reach our in-laws' home. Feeling a bit under the weather with a low-grade fever and lingering fatigue, I entrusted the driving to my husband, Michael. Upon arrival, my mother-in-law emerged from the front door with an air of cheerfulness. Well, look who's here. It's been a while, Michael. You should visit more often. Oh dear, you look exhausted." "I've been driving non-stop, so it's understandable," Michael replied wearily. "You've clearly put in a lot of effort. I'll prepare the bed right away. Why don't you go rest in the back room?" "That sounds like a plan, Sarah. You should rest too. You've been tending to our child in the car. You must be exhausted. Plus, you don't seem well." "Oh, Michael, you didn't know. I spoke with Sarah yesterday, and we arranged to go shopping for the 60th birthday celebration." "Sarah, you go rest. Once you've placed the luggage at the entrance, we'll head out." Of course, I couldn't recall any such arrangement, nor did I recall discussing any shopping plans. After looking after our energetic 5-year-old daughter, I felt drained. Since I wasn't feeling well, I welcomed the chance to rest. "Since Sarah isn't feeling well, let her rest. You can handle the shopping, but this is your father's special occasion. I want to pick out the finest ingredients with Sarah." "Sarah, you'll stick to our plan, won't you?" She had a knack for presenting excuses that left me no room for refusal. After dropping off the luggage, she grabbed my arm forcefully and directed me back into the car we had just exited. With an intense glare, she snapped, "You don't need rest right now." But almost instantly, her demeanor softened into a broad smile as she exclaimed, "Thank you for driving this. I really appreciate it." Knowing my mother-in-law's temperament, opposing her at that moment would likely ruin the entire day. With reluctance, I found myself settling into the driver's seat. "I'm feeling all right, Michael. You take a break. I'll accompany mother-in-law for shopping." Attempting to hand her daughter over to Michael, my mother-in-law swiftly intervened, taking the child from my arms and settling her into the child's seat before shutting the door firmly. Taking care of the child is a mother's responsibility. "Well then, Michael, we're off." As she settled into the passenger seat, her previously sweet demeanor vanished, replaced by a harsh tone as she began to chastise me. "So, you can't even manage to care for your own child? Quit relying on Michael for everything. You're nothing but an incompetent daughter-in-law, aging before your time." What was truly unsettling was her ability to maintain a sugary facade while my husband, Michael, remained within earshot, completely oblivious. "Wave goodbye to this microwave," she quipped as we embarked on the drive in my husband's unfamiliar car towards the bustling supermarket. Predictably, my mother-in-law wasted no time before launching into a lecture. "You'll regret lounging around while my son drives, mother-in-law," I retorted weakly. "Please refrain from such ominous remarks. I've been battling fever and fatigue since this morning. Your poor health stems from your lack of discipline, and your crow's feet, more pronounced. Those cheek spots, darker. It's painful to witness. Your skin has lost its former vitality," she criticized relentlessly. Drained of all energy to counter her harsh words, I merely nodded as we reached the supermarket. This is utterly exhausting. How do daughters-in-law worldwide endure such treatment from their mothers-in-law? My spirited mother-in-law sprang out of the car without a word of gratitude, immediately thrusting 2 shopping carts into my hands. "Move faster, you're so slow." Attempting to steer clear of the bustling crowds, I lagged behind, but she surged ahead, filling the carts with extravagant items like USDA prime beef, crab, salmon roe, and melons. She then proceeded to toss in unnecessary items. "Mother-in-law, do we really need all of this right now? I've already decided, we're stocking up so we won't have to make frequent trips. You should have known that without my having to tell you." Feeling utterly helpless, I allowed her to dictate the shopping list. By the time we finished, the carts were overflowing. "Let's head to checkout. Move quickly now, no dawdling." Despite her haste, when it was time to settle the bill at the checkout counter, my mother-in-law made no move to retrieve her wallet. "Mother-in-law, the payment," I ventured. She kept her hands folded behind her back, unmoving. When I pressed her again for the money, she shot me an angry glare. "You should foot the bill for everything." "Excuse me," I stammered. "As a wife, it's your responsibility to cater to your husband's family. Don't be miserly, just pay up." Reluctantly, I ended up covering the entire bill at the register, totaling $300. With no cash on hand, I had to charge it to my credit card. As a part-time worker trying to support my child, this financial blow hit hard. What made matters worse was that I had brought $300 as a birthday gift for my father-in-law's 60th birthday, but now I couldn't use it. This expense meant tightening our belts even further in the future, adding to the already heavy burden. I wonder how I'll break this news to Michael. If I were to speak up about this treatment, my mother-in-law might cause a scene. During the car ride home, she continued her onslaught of insults, showcasing an impressive array of verbal attacks. On our arrival home, my husband remained fast asleep, likely exhausted. Sensing an opportunity, my mother-in-law's smile widened as she began to assert her authority over me. "After you've put away the groceries, go eat in the garden immediately. Could I please have a moment to rest? You have no right to defy your mother-in-law. This is the consequence of letting Michael drive alone. You brought this upon yourself," I muttered. "If you have time to argue, then you have time to work. Hurry up, we're running out of time. After you've eaten, clean the bathroom and the toilet." Despite the injustice of the situation, I had no option but to endure it. Throughout the day, I toiled in the garden, pulling out weeds before tackling the grime and yellow stains in the bathroom and toilet. As I worked, I consoled myself with the thought that once the 60th birthday celebration concluded, I could enjoy some respite from my mother-in-law's presence. Just as I finished cleaning, my husband stirred from his slumber, surprised to find me still at work. Sarah, are you all right? If you're not feeling well, don't push yourself too hard. Take a break, he urged. Thank you, I'll take you up on that, I replied wearily. Ouch, that hurts. But before I could finally rest, my mother-in-law suddenly let out a piercing cry, clutching her back in agony. Despite her earlier vitality, she now complained of sudden back pain, her demeanor shifting from lively to frail in an instant. This is troublesome. My back is in excruciating pain. I can't manage anything. My chronic back issues have flared up once more. I won't be able to prepare food before our relatives arrive. Sarah, you're my only hope. But oh, what am I to do? While her distressed demeanor seemed somewhat contrived, if her chronic back pain was genuine, then standing in the kitchen would indeed be impossible for her. With a heavy heart, I entrusted my husband with our daughter's care and reluctantly began cooking. Sarah, are you certain you're all right? I'm fine. Cooking is my usual responsibility, remember? I maintained a facade of strength for my husband, though my body was already weary. However, it was a significant day for my father-in-law, and I felt compelled to soldier on. My head is spinning, and the scent of food is making me queasy. But I must persevere for my father-in-law's sake. After completing the cooking, my father-in-law entered the kitchen to check on me. You've worked tirelessly. Thank you for preparing all this food. It's my pleasure. It's all for you. Please enjoy it later. As the relatives began to gather, each offering well wishes to my father-in-law, the atmosphere became animated. After the toasts were made and we were on the verge of starting the meal, my mother-in-law uttered something utterly shocking. I regret to inform everyone that due to my chronic back pain acting up on this important birthday celebration, all the food was prepared by my daughter-in-law. I apologize for the lackluster quality of the dishes, courtesy of my unattractive daughter-in-law. Both my father-in-law and husband were stunned into silence by my mother-in-law's sudden outburst. Not only is my daughter-in-law unattractive, but she's also clumsy and utterly inept. It's truly a shame, she continued, her tone dripping with disdain. As she exaggeratedly rubbed her back, my mother-in-law persisted in belittling me. She's quite clumsy, you see. Without my assistance, she's helpless. I even question her ability to care for her own child. I worry whether Michael can cope with such a wife. What should have been a joyous occasion swiftly descended into a somber atmosphere, reminiscent more of a funeral than a celebration. My typically supportive husband, who should have been caring for our daughter, was conspicuously absent. Then, in a moment that shattered the tension, my father-in-law, who had been silently observing, rose to his feet. Is that all you have to say? He demanded, his voice cutting through the tension. Seems like it. Perhaps it's time to bid farewell to the useless one, my mother-in-law added, her words dripping with contempt. In that instant, my husband strode into the room, carrying our daughter in a suitcase. His expression was unusually stern. Dad, as you suggested, I've packed her belongings, he declared firmly. My mother-in-law's smile hinted at satisfaction. Sarah, it appears you're being shown the door, she taunted. But to her astonishment, my husband handed the suitcase to her. What? My father-in-law's booming voice delivered the final blow. Take that and leave this house immediately. Despite her initial confusion, my mother-in-law swiftly grasped the gravity of the situation. Why am I the one being asked to leave? It's Sarah who's incompetent. The bathroom is always covered in mold, the toilet left filthy, and you dare to label Sarah as useless when you hardly lift a finger to cook. And let's not forget how terribly you've treated her. I've had my fill. It's a mother-in-law's responsibility to guide her daughter-in-law. I was merely pointing out her flaws. Guidance. Please. Do you think we're living in? My father-in-law began, but the raised eyebrows of an enraged father-in-law left no room for support. Realizing she wouldn't garner any sympathy from him, my mother-in-law resorted to her usual theatrics, turning to my husband and bursting into tears. Michael, don't get the wrong idea. Someday, we might have to take care of your father, right? So, I was trying to teach Sarah how to be a good wife, as difficult as that may have been. Taking care of him, that's a joke. I won't be fooled by you anymore. You've been mistreating Sarah all along, even today. Despite feeling unwell, she still came to celebrate Dad's 60th birthday. Sarah volunteered to join the celebration, didn't she? Don't deny it. And you made her foot the bill for the groceries, didn't you? I found a receipt from today in her bag when she was trying to get candies for our daughter. It clearly shows Sarah paid with her credit card. I just asked her to pay because I didn't have any cash on me. I was planning to reimburse her later, honestly. Really? If I hadn't noticed, you would have stayed silent about it. I've ignored the typical mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts, but you've crossed a line. I'm tired of living with such a spiteful old woman. Witnessing my husband and father-in-law turn away from her, my mother-in-law reverted to her usual theatrics, blaming me with all her usual dramatic flair, tears streaming down her face. No, I haven't vocalized it, but it's undeniable that you've been mistreating me, isn't it? For the sake of my father-in-law and my husband, who had shown me unwavering support, I summoned the courage to speak the truth for the first time. I refused to let my mother-in-law continue to dictate the narrative. That's correct. We were informed by Mia. We're aware of the derogatory remarks you made about Sarah at the supermarket and in the car afterward. You forced Sarah to handle all the weeding and cleaning in the house. Yeah, Grandma was mean to Mommy. She made her clean lots of things. You can't just dismiss a child's words. Maya doesn't lie. Let's review the dash cam footage. That should clarify everything. Excellent suggestion, Sarah. I'll do that right away. Ignoring his mother's protests, Michael strode out to the parked car, starting the engine and pulling up the dash cam footage. The latest model, equipped to record both the road and the car's interior, provided crystal clear visuals, including facial expressions. It's all there. She said those things. I murmured. I'm appalled, echoed everyone as they watched the footage unfold. This is utterly unacceptable. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, who had remained inside the house, adamantly denying any wrongdoing, began to panic as tension thickened, rushing barefoot toward the car. Stop this immediately. Don't watch. But no amount of shouting could halt the revelation. With all her transgressions laid bare, my mother-in-law stood speechless, stunned into silence. That's when my father-in-law casually handed her a single piece of paper. I've filled out my portion. You just need to complete yours and submit it. What? Is this a divorce form? I had to prepare it just in case. I never imagined I'd have to use it. Never darken my doorstep again. Wait, I promise to change. Promises won't suffice, Sarah. Please find it in your heart to forgive me. Seeing my mother-in-law plead for forgiveness, tears streaming down her face, was a pitiful sight. But I suspected it might be yet another performance. With resolve, I gently pushed her away. You've revealed your mistreatment of your daughter-in-law. I can never forgive you. It's best you leave before the neighbors become involved. Oh no, this is dreadful. The commotion caught the attention of neighbors who observed from a distance. Perhaps unwilling to create a scene, she swiftly accepted the divorce papers and her suitcase, miraculously recovered from her supposed back pain, and dashed out of the garden. With the villain swiftly dealt with, our once tense home was now heavy with remorse. I apologize for all this disruption during your 60th birthday celebration, Dad, I said sincerely, bracing for his response. Sarah, you bear no blame. I'm the one who should apologize for all the trouble we've caused. Let's put this behind us and start anew, he replied. A smile graced my father-in-law's face. The relatives, too, looked on with sympathetic expressions. Later, they commended the dishes I had prepared and enjoyed them with gusto. In that moment, all weariness seemed to evaporate into thin air. Thus, we commemorated my father-in-law's 60th birthday in grand style. Despite her initial reluctance, my mother-in-law eventually agreed to the divorce, and it concluded amicably. It also came to light that she had been embezzling funds from my father-in-law's account, resulting in an order for her to repay $10,000 that she had spent recklessly. Struggling to secure employment due to her lack of experience, she now works as a nighttime janitor in an office building. With little money remaining, she resides in a dilapidated apartment that has seen better days. Meanwhile, I discovered that I was pregnant with my second child. The discomfort I had experienced earlier was attributed to my pregnancy. 5 months have elapsed since then, and my husband Michael has been incredibly supportive. Our ultrasound revealed that we are expecting a baby boy. Both Michael and my father-in-law eagerly anticipate his arrival, already preparing for his welcome. My father-in-law even sent over a selection of blue baby clothes. Our darling daughter is thrilled at the prospect of having a younger brother and diligently practices caring for a baby with her dolls each day. Witnessing her enthusiasm fills me with boundless joy.
The Christmas lights twinkled mockingly through the window, casting shadows across the diamond necklace in my sister's hands, the one that should have been my wedding deposit. My stomach churned as Kylie tilted it under the light, each facet catching and throwing tiny daggers of brightness across her face. "It's absolutely perfect," she cooed, shooting our mother that conspiratorial smile I'd grown up watching from the sidelines. "You always know exactly what I need." I gripped my coffee mug tighter, the ceramic burning against my palms. The pain felt good, something real to focus on besides the acid rising in my throat. 3 years I'd been saving that money, picking up extra shifts at the hospital, skipping vacations, living in that cramped studio apartment. Also, Jamie and I could have the wedding we'd dreamed about. "Juliana, honey, you're being awfully quiet," Mom said, her voice dripping with that artificial sweetness she used when company was over. "Isn't the necklace stunning on your sister?" I forced my lips into what I hoped passed for a smile. "Beautiful," I managed, the word tasting like metal in my mouth. The same way it had last week when I discovered the empty account, when Dad had stammered through his explanation about temporary loans and family emergencies. Kylie bounced over to the mirror, preening. "It's exactly what I needed for the charity gala. You know Harrison's whole family will be there." She shot me a look over her shoulder. "Sometimes you just have to invest in your future, right?" My future, my savings, my trust shattered like the coffee mug I suddenly wanted to hurl across the room. But that's not what good daughters do. That's not what I do. "Speaking of futures," Mom chirped, "Jamie must be getting anxious about setting a date. You two have been engaged for what, 8 months now?" The concern in her voice was as fake as the sympathy in her eyes when I'd confronted her about the money. "These things happen in families," she'd said. "Kylie just needs a little help right now. You understand, don't you, sweetie? You've always been our practical one." Practical, reliable, doormat. "Actually," I said, setting my mug down with deliberate care, "Jamie and I had an interesting conversation last night." The lie slid out smooth as silk, surprising even me. About family and trust, and what we're willing to sacrifice for the people we love. Something flickered in Mom's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. Good. "Oh?" Her fingers worried at her pearl necklace, her tell when she's nervous. "What kind of conversation?" I stood gathering my coat. "Just thinking about priorities, about who deserves our loyalty." I paused at the door, watching Kylie still admiring herself. "And who doesn't?" "Juliana," Mom started, but I was already walking out, the screen door banging behind me with a satisfaction I hadn't known I was capable of feeling. The winter air hit my face like a slap, but I welcomed it. Better than the suffocating warmth of lies inside. My phone buzzed. Probably Jamie, wondering why I'd missed our lunch date. Sweet, honest Jamie, who believed the best in everyone. Who'd be horrified if he knew what I was considering. But as I stood there watching my breath cloud in the air, a plan was already crystallizing. Uncle Jacob would understand. He'd been through something similar with Mom and Dad years ago. The family black sheep, they called him. The bitter one who couldn't let go of grudges. Funny how perspective changes everything. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling slightly as I pulled up his contact. 3 years since we'd spoken. Would he even take my call? Another text from Jamie lit up my screen. "Missing you. Hope everything's okay with the family stuff. Remember, whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." I stared at his message, my throat tight. Sweet Jamie, who deserved a bride focused on their future, not orchestrating revenge, who believed in forgiveness and second chances. But as I glanced back at the window, at Kylie still preening in her stolen diamonds while Mom looked on adoringly, something hardened inside me. They'd stolen more than money. They'd stolen my trust, my place in the family, my belief in happy endings. Time to show them exactly what their practical daughter was capable of. I clicked on Uncle Jacob's number before I could change my mind. It rang twice before his gruff voice answered. "Juliana, this is unexpected." "Uncle Jacob," I said, watching another round of laughter erupt inside. "Remember when you told me someday I'd understand why you cut ties with the family? Well, I think that day just arrived. The silence on the other end stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then, come over. We have a lot to discuss. I ended the call, a strange calm settling over me. Through the window, the Christmas lights continued their cheerful dance, but they didn't mock me anymore. They were lighting my way to war. Uncle Jacob's study smelled exactly as I remembered: leather, pipe tobacco, and secrets. Late afternoon sun filtered through dusty windows, catching the brass handles of filing cabinets that lined the walls. I perched on the edge of his leather armchair, hands clasped to stop their shaking. "So," he said, settling behind his massive oak desk, "they finally showed their true colors." The metal taste was back in my mouth. "They emptied my account. $38,000. My voice cracked. "For a necklace, for Kylie." He didn't look surprised, just tired. "Your mother always did have a weakness for shiny things. And your sister—" He trailed off, picking up a letter opener and turning it in his hands. "Well, the apple didn't fall far from that particular tree." I confronted them, I said. Dad just stammered excuses about family obligations. Mom acted like I was being selfish for even questioning it. The memory of her dismissive wave still made my chest tight. But that's not even the worst part. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "I found the paperwork. They've been planning this for months. The account wasn't just emptied. They'd been slowly transferring money out since summer. Small amounts at first, then larger ones." My fingers dug into the chair's leather. "They thought I wouldn't notice because I trusted them to help manage the wedding fund." "Ah." Jacob set down the letter opener. "And I'm guessing this wasn't the first time?" "What do you mean?" He pulled open a drawer, extracting a thick manila folder. "Your college fund, Juliana, the one your grandmother set up before she died." The room suddenly felt too small. "What college fund?" $50,000, earmarked specifically for your education." He slid several documents across the desk. "Your mother convinced the trustees to release it early, said it was for an emergency medical procedure." His mouth twisted. "Interesting timing, that release. Right around when Kylie needed that down payment on her first condo." I stared at the papers, my grandmother's familiar signature swimming before my eyes. All those student loans I was still paying off. All those nights I'd worked through college thinking we just couldn't afford more. "Why?" My voice failed. I tried again. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" His eyes were kind but knowing. "Back then, you still thought they hung the moon. Besides, I was already the family pariah after exposing your father's creative accounting at the firm. Nobody was listening to crazy Uncle Jacob anymore." The truth of it hit like a physical blow. I'd avoided him for years, believing their whispers about his bitterness, his jealousy, his lies. All while they'd been systematically stealing my future. My phone buzzed, another text from Jamie. "Getting worried. Please call me." Jacob watched me silence it. "Does he know?" "No." I rubbed my temples. He'd tell me to take the high road, to focus on our future, not the past. "And is that what you want to do?" The question hung in the air. Through the window, I could see the sun setting, painting the sky the same color as Kylie's stolen diamonds. "No," I said finally. "I want them to feel what I'm feeling. I want them to understand what it's like to have everything taken by someone you trusted." My voice hardened. "I want them to pay." Jacob nodded slowly. "Then you should know there's more. Much more." He stood, walking to one of the filing cabinets. "Your father's firm, his position on the hospital board, your mother's charity foundation. It's all built on quicksand. Years of creative accounting, misappropriated funds, favors called in to cover tracks." My head spun. "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been gathering evidence since they forced me out." He pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. "Originally for my own protection, but now—" He held it out. "Maybe it's time this information found a better use." I stared at the folder, understanding the choice it represented. Take it, and there was no going back. No more being the good daughter, the understanding sister, the practical one who sacrificed without complaint. My phone buzzed again. Jamie's face lit up the screen, his smile warm and trusting. Everything I was about to risk. If we do this, I said, reaching for the folder, we do it smart. No mistakes, no warnings. The paper felt heavy in my hands, weighted with possibility. They need to feel completely safe right up until the moment everything crashes down. Uncle Jacob's smile was grim. Then we should start with the charity gala, the one where Kylie's planning to debut her new necklace. I thought of my sister's smirk in the mirror, my mother's false concern, my father's weak excuses. 3 decades of being the family doormat, compressed into a single, clarifying moment of rage. Yes, I said, opening the folder. Let's start there. The charity gala invitation felt heavy in my hands, gold lettering catching the morning light. 2 weeks of planning had led to this moment, but my fingers still trembled as I dialed the number. Harrison speaking. His voice was exactly as pompous as I remembered from Kylie's endless stories about her perfect boyfriend. Hi, Harrison. This is Juliana, Kylie's sister. I forced warmth into my tone. I'm helping Mom with the gala seating arrangements, and I wanted to confirm something about your family's preferences. Oh, yes, of course. He brightened immediately. Kylie mentioned you'd taken on more foundation responsibilities. Wonderful to see you getting involved. I swallowed hard against the bitterness rising in my throat. My involvement had always been behind the scenes, stuffing envelopes, arranging flowers, being the reliable one while Kylie sparkled in the spotlight. Actually, I said, I had some concerns about the Foundation's financial reports, some discrepancies I noticed while organizing the donor files. The silence on the other end stretched just a beat too long. I'm not sure I follow. Maybe I should speak with your father directly, since he's on the board of directors. No! The sharp edge in his voice confirmed Uncle Jacob's intel. Harrison's father had been helping cover my parents' creative accounting for years. I mean, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Why don't we discuss it at tomorrow's pre-gala meeting? Perfect. I ended the call and turned to Jacob, who'd been listening intently. You were right. He's definitely worried. Of course he is. Jacob shuffled through some papers. The question is, will he tell your sister? He won't risk it. Kylie can't keep secrets to save her life. I'd learned that lesson early, watching her trade my confidences for our mother's approval. He'll try to handle it quietly. Then we proceed to phase 2. Jacob handed me another document. But first you should know, Jamie called me this morning. My heart stuttered. What? He's worried. Says you've been distant, canceling plans. Jacob's eyes were gentle but firm. He asked if I knew what was going on with you and the family. What did you tell him? Nothing, but Juliana. He leaned forward. He loves you. Maybe it's time to... No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Jamie believes in second chances, in talking things through. He'd try to stop this. And would that be so wrong? I stood, pacing to the window. Outside, early spring flowers were pushing through the soil. Stubborn, determined little things fighting their way toward light. You don't understand, I said finally. Jamie sees the best in everyone. He'd tell me to forgive them, to focus on our future together. But every time I close my eyes, I see Kylie wearing my wedding fund around her neck. I see Mom's dismissive wave, Dad's weak excuses. My voice cracked. I see 30 years of being the good daughter. And where did it get me? So, you're willing to risk losing him over this? The question hit like a physical blow. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, remembering Jamie's face the night he proposed. His absolute certainty that we'd face everything together. My phone buzzed, a text from Kylie. Emergency! Harrison acting weird about gala, need to talk. It's starting, I said, showing Jacob the message. She has no idea he's panicking about the Foundation's finances. And when he distances himself to protect his family's interests, she'll be devastated. The satisfaction in my voice surprised even me. Just in time for her big moment at the gala. Jacob studied me for a long moment. You know, revenge changes people, not always in ways they expect. I'm counting on it. I picked up my purse, checking my lipstick in a nearby mirror. Kylie wants to talk? Fine. Time to play the supportive sister one last time. But as I reached for the door, Jacob called out softly. Your grandmother used to say you had her heart, gentle but strong. He paused. She also said sometimes the gentlest hearts, when broken, become the most dangerous. I thought of the diamond necklace, of stolen futures and shattered trust, of Jamie's faith in happy endings. Maybe that's exactly what they deserve, I said, and stepped out into the spring sunshine. My phone buzzed again. Jamie this time. Miss you. Dinner tonight? I stared at his message, thumb hovering over the reply button. Every lie I told him carved another piece from my heart. But I thought of the documents in Jacob's office, of years of systematic betrayal hidden behind family loyalty. Can't tonight? I typed back. Family emergency. At least that part wasn't a lie. Kylie's favorite coffee shop hadn't changed, all gleaming copper and overpriced lattes. I found her hunched over a table in the corner, her designer handbag occupying the chair meant for me. Classic Kylie. Thank God you're here, she said, not looking up from her phone. Harrison's being totally weird, like canceled our dinner plans weird. I moved her bag and sat down, noting the diamond necklace still prominently displayed against her cashmere sweater. My wedding fund, sparkling in the afternoon sun. Maybe he's stressed about the gala, I offered, stirring my coffee. Dad mentioned the foundation's been under extra scrutiny lately. Her head snapped up. What? Since when do you and Dad discuss foundation business? Oh, you know. I shrugged. Just trying to be more involved, like Mom's always wanted. Kylie's eyes narrowed. Something flickered across her face. Doubt? Fear? Right. Because you're suddenly interested in the foundation after years of avoiding it. People change. I met her gaze steadily. Sometimes they surprise you. Yeah, well, she fidgeted with the necklace. Speaking of surprises, Mom told me about your little outburst the other day, about the wedding fund. Did she tell you where the money went? It was an investment in my future. Her chin lifted defiantly. Harrison's family has connections. This gala could change everything for me. And my future? My wedding? Oh, please. She rolled her eyes. Like you and Jamie need some fancy ceremony. You guys are basically married already. Besides, you're good at making do with less. It's kind of your thing. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. All those years of hand-me-downs, of scaled-back dreams, of watching Kylie get everything while I learned to want nothing, distilled into one dismissive statement. My phone buzzed. Jamie again. Haven't seen you in days. Everything okay? Kylie noticed. Trouble in paradise? Actually, I said, an idea forming. Jamie's been asking questions about the foundation, the family finances. The color drained from her face. What did you tell him? Nothing yet. But he works in financial law, you know. He notices things. You can't... She grabbed my hand, her nails digging in. Juliana, promise me you won't say anything. The gala's too important. Harrison's father will be there, and if there's even a hint of impropriety... I gently extracted my hand. Of course not. We're family, right? Relief flooded her features. She hadn't even noticed the edge in my voice, too wrapped up in her own concerns. Typical. God, you're the best. She stood, gathering her things. I have to run. Final dress fitting. But we should do this more often, maybe after the gala? I watched her leave, touching the coffee cup she'd left for me to clear away. Same old pattern. Kylie creates chaos. I clean up the mess. But not this time. My phone buzzed again. Jamie. Coming over tonight, we need to talk. The message sent ice through my veins. I called Jacob. He knows something, I said when he answered. Jamie's coming over to talk. Are you sure you want to continue with this? Jacob's voice was careful. There's still time to step back. I touched my neck where the phantom weight of my grandmother's pearls should have been. Another inheritance that had mysteriously found its way to Kylie. No, but I need to move faster. I took a deep breath. The documents you showed me about Dad's creative accounting, send them to me. All of them. Juliana, they're going to lose everything anyway once this comes out. At least this way, I control when and how it happens. A long pause. And Jamie? I thought of his face, how it would look when he realized what I'd done. How similar it might be to my expression when I'd discovered the empty account. Sometimes, I said, you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it. Your grandmother used to say something similar, Jacob mused. Right before she cut your mother out of her will. I sat up straighter. What? Oh. His voice turned careful. You didn't know? The college fund wasn't the only thing your mother manipulated. The entire inheritance. Well, that's a conversation for another time. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too bright. Another betrayal, deeper than I'd imagined. Send me everything, I said. Not just the foundation documents. Everything. Are you sure? Once you know certain things? I'm sure. I watched Kylie's abandoned coffee cup, still leaving rings on the table. It's time everyone's truth came to light. I ended the call, staring at Jamie's message. Tonight would change everything, one way or another. Good thing I'd always been good at making do with less. Jamie was already waiting at my apartment when I arrived, his familiar silhouette framed by my kitchen window. The sight of him, hands in pockets, shoulders tense, made my heart ache with everything I was about to lose. Your mother called me, he said without turning around. 3 words, and my carefully constructed plan began to crumble. What did she say? I kept my voice neutral, setting my keys down with deliberate care. She's worried about you. Says you've been acting strange, asking questions about the foundation. Now he turned, his eyes searching my face. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown over the wedding fund situation. A laugh bubbled up, harsh, unfamiliar. Of course she does. Easier than admitting what they did. Jules. He stepped closer, reaching for my hand. I let him take it, wondering if he could feel my pulse racing. I know you're hurt. But this obsession with revenge, with exposing family secrets, this isn't you. Maybe it is now. I pulled away, moving to the kitchen counter where Jacob's documents lay hidden in my bag. Maybe this is who I've always been, just waiting for the right moment. No. His voice was firm. The Juliana I know believes in forgiveness, in fixing things, not destroying them. The Juliana you know was a doormat. The words tasted like freedom. She let them take everything, her college fund, her inheritance, her wedding dreams, all while smiling and being the good daughter. Jamie went very still. What inheritance? Too late, I realized my mistake. I hadn't meant to reveal that part yet. It doesn't matter. I turned away, but he caught my arm. It matters if it's driving you to do something you can't take back. His grip was gentle but insistent. Talk to me, Jules. Please. The concern in his voice nearly broke me. I thought of all our plans, our shared dreams of a simple wedding and a life built on trust. How had we ended up here? My grandmother left me everything, I said finally. The house, the investments, all of it. Mom somehow convinced the trustees to transfer it all before I turned 25, before I even knew it existed. How much? Almost $2 million. His sharp intake of breath filled the silence, but that's not even the worst part. I pulled away, retrieving the documents from my bag. Look at these. Years of systematic fraud at the foundation. Dad's been embezzling money, Mom's been covering it up, and they used my inheritance to hide the evidence. Jamie took the papers, his lawyer's eyes scanning quickly. Jules, this is serious. If this gets out, they'll lose everything. I watched his face carefully. The foundation, their reputations, probably their freedom. And that's what you want? I want justice. No, he set the papers down. You want revenge. There's a difference. Is there? I moved to the window, watching the city lights blur through unexpected tears. They stole my future, Jamie, multiple times, used me while favoring Kylie, And now they're worried about me. Now they call my fiancé to intervene. Because they love you. They love what I represent. The reliable one. The one who never causes problems. I turned back to him. But I'm done being that person. Even if it costs you everything? He stepped closer. Even if it costs us? The moment stretched between us, heavy with possibility and loss. I have to do this, I whispered. With or without you. Jamie closed his eyes briefly, pain etching lines around his mouth. When he opened them, something had changed. Then I need to show you something. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails. Your mother didn't just call me, she sent me this. I took the phone, reading quickly, then again, slower, as the implications sank in. No, I breathed. This can't be right. I verified it myself. His voice was gentle. The foundation isn't just your parents' fraud. Your Uncle Jacob, he's been manipulating everything from the beginning, including you. The room tilted sideways. I grabbed the counter for support, staring at the evidence on the screen. Jacob's signature on documents dated years before his supposed exile from the family. His careful orchestration of events that led to his discovery of the fraud. He wanted revenge too, Jamie said softly. He just needed someone else to take the fall. My phone buzzed. Jacob, right on cue. Everything set for tomorrow? I stared at his message, remembering his careful guidance, his perfectly timed revelations, the way he'd stoked my anger while positioning himself as my only ally. Jules? Jamie touched my shoulder. What are you going to do? I looked at the documents scattered across my counter. Weapons meant to destroy my family, handed to me by a man I'd trusted completely. I'm going to make someone pay, I said. Just not who I originally planned. Uncle Jacob's study felt different now. The leather and pipe tobacco scent that had once seemed comforting now felt cloying, artificial, like everything else about him. I sat in my usual chair, Jamie's evidence burning a hole in my phone, and watched him shuffle papers with practiced concern. The gala's tomorrow, he said, not looking up. Everything's in place. Once Harrison's father sees these documents. Did you kill her? The question cut through the room like a blade. His hand stilled. Excuse me? Grandmother. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. Did you kill her, or just manipulate her into changing the will? The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds before he smiled. Not his usual warm uncle smile, but something colder, more calculated. Interesting theory. He leaned back, studying me. What makes you ask? The timing. I met his gaze. She changes her will, making me the sole heir instead of mom. 2 weeks later, she dies in her sleep. Then you spend years orchestrating this elaborate revenge scheme, using me as your puppet. Not a puppet. He spread his hands. A partner, someone equally wronged by this family's corruption. Except you're the corruption, aren't you? I pulled out my phone, showing him the emails Jamie had found. You've been embezzling from the foundation for years, long before Dad got involved. You just needed someone else to take the blame when it all fell apart. His expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. And you believe your precious Jamie about this? The man who'd say anything to protect your parents? I believe the evidence, the same way you taught me to. I stood, moving toward the door. It's over, Uncle Jacob. I'm going to the police. Sit down, Juliana. The command in his voice froze me mid-step. When I turned, he was holding a small revolver. Really? I forced a calm I didn't feel. This is your solution? You're so much like her, he said, almost sadly. Your grandmother had that same righteous certainty. That same inability to see the bigger picture. Did she figure it out too? Is that why she had to die? She was going to ruin everything. He gestured to the chair with the gun. Sit, please. I sat, mind racing. Jamie knew where I was. We'd planned for this. But how long before he realized something was wrong? You know what's interesting? Jacob continued conversationally. Everyone thinks revenge is about anger, but it's really about patience. Years of careful planning, of earning trust, of waiting for the perfect moment. He smiled. Your parents and sister were just bonus players. You were always the key. Because I inherited everything. Because you were innocent. His voice hardened. The perfect victim. The selfless daughter everyone took advantage of. Who would question you turning against them after what they did? My phone buzzed. Jacob's eyes flicked to it. That'll be Jamie, I said. He's expecting me. Then you should text him. Tell him everything's fine, that you're staying to help me prepare for tomorrow. I pulled out my phone slowly, deliberately, opened my messages. You won't get away with this, I said, buying time. The police. We'll find a tragic murder-suicide, the unstable daughter, driven to desperation by family betrayal, confronting her equally unstable uncle. Such a shame, really. My fingers shook as I typed, running late, still with Uncle Jacob. His smile widened as I hit send. Good girl, now! The study door burst open. Jamie and 2 police officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Drop it! One officer shouted as Jacob swung the gun toward them. Everything happened at once. The crack of gunfire, Jacob falling, Jamie pulling me behind him, my phone clattering to the floor, screen still showing the distress code we'd arranged, still with Uncle Jacob, the signal that meant I was in danger. Are you okay? Jamie's hands were on my face, checking for injuries. I came as soon as I got your message. I nodded, watching the officers handcuff my uncle. He was laughing softly, blood seeping from his shoulder wound. You really are just like her, he called to me. She tried to be clever too, thought she could outsmart me. The difference is, I said, my voice shaking, I had help. She died alone. His laughter cut off abruptly. In the sudden silence, one officer read him his rights, while the other bagged the revolver as evidence. The documents, I remembered suddenly. All the evidence of his fraud is safe, Jamie assured me. The police have everything. Your parents, the foundation, it's all going to come out now. I leaned against him, watching them lead Jacob away. Tomorrow's gala would still bring destruction, just not the kind any of us had planned. Take me home, I whispered to Jamie, please. But as we left the study, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Jacob's words echoed in my head. Revenge isn't about anger, it's about patience. And somewhere in the gathering darkness, Kylie's diamond necklace still sparkled with my stolen dreams. The gala ballroom glittered like a fever dream. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and 300 of the city's elite pretending the world wasn't about to shatter. I adjusted my black dress, borrowed from Krista since my savings were still wrapped around Kylie's neck, and watched my sister work the room. She hadn't heard about Jacob yet. None of them had. You don't have to do this, Jamie murmured beside me, his hand warm against my back. The police have everything they need. I need to see their faces. I sipped champagne I couldn't taste. When they realize what's coming... Across the room, Mom was holding court with her charity board members, elegant in midnight blue. Dad stood nearby, laughing too loudly at someone's joke. They looked so normal, so innocent, just like Jacob had. Juliana! Kylie's voice cut through my thoughts. She practically bounced over, diamonds catching the light. You actually came, and you look... nice. The familiar dismissal barely stung now. Wouldn't miss it, especially since Uncle Jacob helped plan everything so carefully. Something flickered in her eyes. Speaking of Jacob, have you heard from him? He's not answering his phone. Oh, he's been detained, I smiled. But don't worry, everything he planned for tonight will still happen. Before she could respond, feedback squealed through the speakers. Harrison's father took the stage, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention... I checked my watch, right on schedule. What's happening? Kylie grabbed my arm. Harrison's been acting weird all day, and now his father looks... guilty? I gently removed her hand. Maybe he's thinking about all those foundation documents he helped falsify, the ones the police are reviewing right now. The color drained from her face. What did you do? Me? Nothing. I took another sip of champagne. Uncle Jacob did most of it. Well, until he tried to shoot me yesterday. What? Turns out he was the real criminal all along, had been stealing from the foundation for years, setting up Dad to take the fall. I watched her process this. Of course, Dad's not innocent either. None of you are. On stage, Harrison's father was stumbling through an announcement about regulatory investigations and temporary suspension of foundation activities. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "You knew," Kylie whispered. "You knew this was coming and you didn't warn us? Like you warned me about stealing my wedding fund?" The words tasted like victory. "Or about Mom stealing my inheritance? That was different. We're family." "Exactly." I turned to face her fully. "We're family, and you all betrayed me, multiple times." Across the room, Dad was backing away from his business associates, their faces hardening as phones buzzed with breaking news alerts. Mom had gone completely still, watching me with dawning horror. "The police will be here soon," I said quietly. "To arrest Dad for fraud. Mom too, probably. They'll want to question you about the necklace, stolen funds and all that." Kylie's hands flew to her throat. "You can't, I didn't—" "No," I finished. "Neither did I, about any of it. Funny how that works." Her face crumpled. For a moment, I saw my little sister again, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who once drew me a whole book of pictures titled Best Sister Ever. "Please," she whispered, "help me fix this." The request hit me like a physical blow. How many times had I put myself last to fix her problems, to protect her from consequences? Jamie's hand found mine, squeezing gently, reminding me I wasn't that person anymore. "I can't fix this," I said, "and I won't try." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Around us, the party dissolved into chaos as people rushed for exits, phones pressed to ears. Mom was crying now, mascara tracking down her cheeks as Dad tried to pull her toward a side door. "The necklace," I said to Kylie. "Take it off." "What?" "Take it off. It was bought with my money, my future." I held out my hand. "Give it back." Her fingers trembled as she unclasped it. The diamonds felt heavy in my palm, still warm from her skin. "What will you do with it?" she asked as police burst through the doors. I thought of Jacob in his cell, of all his careful plans backfiring, of patience and revenge and the cost of both. "I'm going to sell it," I said, watching officers approach our parents. "And have the wedding I always wanted, the one where none of you are invited." The diamonds sparkled as I dropped them into my clutch, no longer a weight around anyone's neck. Behind me, Jamie wrapped his arms around my waist, and together we watched justice arrive in blue uniforms and silver handcuffs. Some things, it turns out, are worth more than family. The courthouse steps felt colder than they should in spring. I sat watching the sunrise paint the city gold, the same color as my grandmother's locket in my hands. The lawyer had given it to me yesterday, found in a safety deposit box with a letter I still couldn't bring myself to read. "Thought I'd find you here?" Krista settled beside me, offering coffee. "Big day. Sentencing day." I traced the locket's worn edges. "Shouldn't you be at work?" "My best friend's family is going to prison. Work can wait." She bumped my shoulder. "Jamie's worried about you." "I know." I'd left him sleeping in our apartment, unable to face his gentle concern. "He thinks I should feel worse about all this." "Do you?" Before I could answer, a familiar figure appeared at the bottom of the steps. Kylie, looking smaller without her designer clothes and diamond accessories. She spotted me and started climbing. "Security knows you're not supposed to be here," I called out. She kept coming. "I had to see you, before—" She gestured vaguely at the courthouse. "Everything." I didn't move as she sat on my other side, careful to leave space between us. "Nice outfit," I said. The department store blazer was a far cry from her usual wardrobe. "Harrison's mother bought it. For appearances." She laughed hollowly. "Apparently I need to look appropriately repentant when my parents are sentenced." "And are you? Repentant?" She plucked at the blazer's sleeve. "I found grandmother's journals, in Mom's study, after the arrests." Her voice shook. "She wrote about you all the time. How special you were. How much you reminded her of herself. She knew what Mom was planning with the inheritance. She was going to stop it, until Jacob stopped her instead. The locket felt heavier suddenly. She left you a letter. Kylie's eyes fixed on the locket. In there, I sat up straighter. How do you know that? Because she left me one too, in my journal. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket. She knew, Juliana. She knew exactly what I would become. The spoiled one, the taker. She tried to warn me. My fingers trembled on the locket's clasp. And did you listen? Would you believe me if I said I'm trying now? Before I could respond, more cars pulled up. Media vans, their satellite dishes reaching toward the brightening sky. Soon they'd be setting up cameras, waiting to capture our parents' arrival for sentencing. I should go, Kylie said, standing. Harrison's mother doesn't want me talking to you. Because I ruined everything? Because you were right. She handed me her letter. Here, maybe knowing she saw it all coming will help somehow. I watched her descend the steps, shoulders straight despite the cameras starting to point her way. When she reached the bottom, she turned back. I really did love the necklace, she called up, but I loved being your sister more. I just forgot that somewhere along the way. She disappeared into a waiting car as Krista squeezed my hand. You okay? I opened the locket. Inside, just as Kylie said, was a carefully folded letter. But there was something else, too. A small key I recognized from childhood visits to grandmother's house. To the garden shed where she kept her most precious things. The shed that, according to the estate papers Jacob showed me, had been empty when she died. My hands shook as I unfolded her letter, reading quickly. Then again, slower, as understanding dawned. Oh my God. I stood suddenly. We have to go. Now. What? Where? The house. Grandmother's house. I was already moving, pulling out my phone to call Jamie. She knew everything. About Jacob, about Mom, all of it. She left evidence in the garden shed. Real evidence, not Jacob's manipulated version. But the house was sold after her death. I smiled, remembering summer afternoons helping grandmother tend her roses. How she'd always said gardens held the best secrets. No, I said. The house sale was faked. Another piece of Jacob's manipulation. Which means... The shed is still there, Krista finished, realization dawning. With whatever she left for you. More cars were arriving now. Soon our parents would face justice, but maybe not the version Jacob had orchestrated. Maybe something truer, cleaner. Something worthy of grandmother's faith in me. I clutched the key, feeling its edges bite into my palm. Some things are worth more than family, I'd told Kylie at the gala. But maybe some family is worth more than revenge. Coming? I asked Krista, already knowing her answer. Together we left the courthouse steps, heading toward a truth that had been waiting in a garden shed all along. Patient as growing things, strong as roots breaking through stone.
I stood in front of the full-length mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at me. The ivory dress hugged my curves perfectly, tiny pearls catching the light as I shifted. 3 years ago, I would have laughed if someone told me I'd be here. 5 minutes, Stella. Sarah poked her head in, her smile wide. You ready? Was I ready? My heart fluttered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I'd spent 32 years building walls around myself, convinced I'd never find someone who wouldn't eventually leave. Then Daniel walked into my life with his quiet confidence and unwavering patience. I've never been more ready for anything, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Sarah crossed the room, adjusting my veil with practiced hands. He's going to lose his mind when he sees you. The roses in my bouquet released their sweet scent as I clutched them tighter. My father should have been here to walk me down the aisle, but he'd chosen a new family over us 15 years ago. I'd invited him anyway. He hadn't responded. Ivy said Dad's not coming, I said, the words still stinging despite my preparation for this moment. Sarah squeezed my shoulder. His loss. Completely, utterly his loss. Music swelled from the church sanctuary. The wedding coordinator appeared at the door, giving us a thumbs up. This is it, Sarah whispered, her eyes glistening. Your happily ever after? I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. Yolanda, who'd been more mother to me than my own since college, waited to escort me. She clasped my hands, tears already streaming down her cheeks. Look at you, she whispered. Absolutely radiant. The doors opened. I caught sight of Daniel at the altar, his eyes finding mine instantly. The smile that broke across his face made my chest ache with happiness. This man, this kind, brilliant man, was about to become my husband. Each step down the aisle felt like floating. The faces of our friends and family blurred together as I focused solely on Daniel, on the future we were about to build. I was 3 steps from the altar when the church doors crashed open. Stop the wedding. The voice sliced through the music, through the moment, through my heart. A voice I'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Jake. The church fell silent as he strode down the aisle, his face flushed. I froze, my body suddenly cold despite the warm June air filtering through the stained glass windows. Jake, what the hell? Daniel stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of me. She can't marry you, Jake said, his eyes wild as they locked with mine. Tell him, Stella. Tell him about us. The bouquet trembled in my grip. There is no us. There hasn't been for years. Jake laughed, the sound hollow and cruel. That's not what you said 3 weeks ago in my bed. Gasps rippled through the church. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? Daniel's voice had dropped to a whisper. He's lying, I said, reaching for Daniel's hand. He pulled away. Daniel, please. Show him, Jake called out, addressing someone in the crowd. Show him the proof. My heart stopped as Terrell, Jake's best friend, stood up from the 3rd row. He held up his phone, his expression grim. I didn't want to do this, man, he said to Daniel. But you deserve to know. Daniel walked down the steps toward Terrell, taking the phone. I followed, my legs moving without conscious thought. Over his shoulder, I saw what looked like text messages. My name, dates from 3 weeks ago, words I'd never written. This isn't real, I said, my voice rising. I never sent these. I haven't spoken to Jake since we broke up. Daniel's face had gone completely blank, a mask I couldn't read. There are pictures, Stella. What pictures? I grabbed for the phone, but he pulled it away. Daniel, whatever he's showing you, it's fake. I would never... Your birthmark, he said quietly. The one on your hip. It's visible in these photos. The room spun around me. How could there be photos? How could anyone have fabricated something so specific? I can explain, Jake said, his voice suddenly reasonable, concerned. She came to me confused, saying she had doubts. I should have turned her away, but... Shut up, I screamed, whirling to face him. You're lying. I never came to you. But the damage was done. I could see it in Daniel's eyes, in the way he couldn't quite look at me. Doubt had taken root. Daniel, I pleaded, reaching for him again. You know me. You know I wouldn't do this. He finally met my gaze, his eyes swimming with pain. I thought I knew you. From the corner of my eye, I caught Sarah slipping her phone into her purse, her face set in determination rather than shock. Unlike everyone else, she didn't look surprised. She looked ready. What did Sarah know that I didn't? The next hours passed in a blur of tears and accusations. Someone, Ivy, I think, guided me to the bridal suite while voices erupted in the sanctuary behind us. I sat motionless on a velvet chair, my wedding dress pooling around me like spilled milk, as the carefully constructed future I'd planned crumbled. He's lying, I repeated, my voice growing hoarse. I haven't seen Jake in 3 years. Ivy paced in front of me, her bridesmaid dress rustling with each step. I believe you, Stella, but those pictures... She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. A soft knock interrupted us. Sarah slipped in, her face tense but composed. Everyone's gone, she said. Daniel left with his brother. I looked up at her, suddenly remembering what I'd seen. "You weren't surprised," I said. "When Jake burst in, you weren't shocked like everyone else." Sarah's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. She closed the door behind her and pulled a chair directly in front of mine. "Because I knew he was planning something," she admitted, reaching into her purse. She withdrew a folded piece of paper. "This was delivered to my apartment yesterday." My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. The handwriting was unmistakably Jake's, the same slanting script that had once filled birthday cards and apology notes after our fights. "Sarah, I know we've never been close, but Stella needs to know the truth before she makes a terrible mistake. I'll be at the church tomorrow. Don't try to stop me." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, crumpling the paper in my fist. "I tried calling him," Sarah said. "He wouldn't answer. I thought about telling you, but it was your wedding day, Stella. I didn't want to ruin it with what might have been nothing." She leaned forward. "I never imagined he'd create such an elaborate lie." "Daniel believed him," I whispered, the reality of it hitting me anew. "After everything we've been through, he believed Jake over me." Ivy sat beside me, taking my hand. "He was blindsided. Those pictures looked real, Stella." "But they can't be real." I stood suddenly, the weight of my dress nearly toppling me. "I haven't been anywhere near Jake." Sarah's expression hardened. "Then someone's gone to extraordinary lengths to fake them. The question is why?" I sank back into the chair, my mind racing. Jake and I had ended badly. Screaming matches, broken dishes, and finally, a restraining order after he refused to accept it was over. But that was 3 years ago. He'd moved away. I'd met Daniel. Life had moved on, or so I thought. "I need to see those pictures," I said. Sarah and Ivy exchanged glances. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Ivy asked gently. "I need to know what I'm fighting against." Sarah nodded and pulled out her phone. "I asked Terrell to send them to me. Said I needed to show Daniel's family." She hesitated. "They're intimate, Stella." My stomach clenched as she handed me the phone. I forced myself to look. The woman in the photos was undeniably me, or someone who looked exactly like me, down to the crescent-shaped birthmark on my right hip. Her face was partially obscured in most shots, but the hair, the body shape, even the small scar on my shoulder from a childhood accident, all perfect matches. "This is impossible," I breathed, scrolling through the images. "This can't be me. Photoshop has gotten incredibly sophisticated," Sarah said, taking back her phone. "But to fake this level of detail, Jake would need recent photos of you. Intimate ones." The implication hung in the air. Only Daniel had those kinds of photos. "Daniel would never share those with anyone," I said firmly. "And these are recent. Look at my hair. I only got it cut like this 2 months ago." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "So either someone's been photographing you without your knowledge, or these are real, and I'm having some kind of psychotic break where I don't remember sleeping with my ex." I finished bitterly. Ivy stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We know you, Stella. If Jake thinks he can waltz back into your life and destroy everything you've built, he's underestimated all of us." A knock at the door interrupted us. The wedding coordinator peeked in, her professional smile strained. "I'm so sorry about everything," she said, "but the church needs the room for another event. Is there somewhere I can send your things?" Reality crashed back. No wedding, no reception, no honeymoon to Greece next week. "My apartment," I said hollowly. The apartment I'd planned to sublet while Daniel and I moved into our new house. As we gathered my belongings, my phone buzzed with a text. "Daniel, I need time to think. Don't try to contact me. 5 years of love, of building trust, of planning a future, reduced to a single cold text." "He can't really believe this," I said, showing Sarah the message. She read it, her expression darkening. "Men are idiots when they're hurt. Give him space to realize how absurd this all is." But as we left the church, I caught sight of a familiar figure watching from across the street. Jake. When our eyes met, he didn't look triumphant or smug. He looked terrified, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just about ruining my wedding. Something much bigger was at stake, and I was determined to find out what. Sleep never came. I spent the night pacing my apartment, wedding dress discarded in a heap on the bathroom floor. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face. The way trust drained from his expression, replaced by doubt and betrayal. By dawn, my sadness had crystallized into something harder: determination. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. "I need to find Jake," I said when she answered, my voice raspy from crying. "He looked scared yesterday. Whatever game he's playing, something's off." "I'm already on it," Sarah replied, sounding wide awake despite the early hour. "I've been digging all night. Jake's been back in town for 3 months working at Meridian Financial." 3 months? The timeline made my skin crawl. That can't be a coincidence. It gets worse. Guess who else works there? My stomach dropped. Who? Terrell, the same guy who conveniently had those photos ready to show Daniel. I pressed my palm against my forehead, trying to process this information. So they've been working together, planning this. Looks that way. Meet me for coffee in an hour? I have more. 40 minutes later, I sat across from Sarah at a corner table in an empty cafe, both of us hunched over her laptop. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her energy was focused, almost feverish. "Jake's been living in this apartment complex," she said, pointing to a map. "It's not far from your running route." "You think he's been following me?" "I think it's worth finding out." She clicked to another screen. I also found this. A social media post appeared. Jake at a bar with his arm around a woman. She was laughing, head tilted back, dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Something about her looked familiar. "Who is she?" I asked. "Elizabeth Turner. Works at Meridian too. But here's the interesting part." Sarah zoomed in on the woman's face. "Notice anything?" I studied the image, then felt my breath catch. She looks like me. Similar enough that with the right angle, lighting, and maybe some digital tweaking, she could pass for me in fake photos. I finished, a chill running through me. "Have you shown this to Daniel?" Sarah's expression tightened. "I tried calling him. He's not answering anyone's calls." I swallowed hard, fighting back a fresh wave of hurt. "I need to talk to Jake directly. Confront him." "Stella, that's dangerous. He has a restraining order history." "Which expired 2 years ago," I countered. "And I won't go alone. You'll come with me." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "We'll go to his workplace. Public setting, witnesses everywhere." 2 hours later, we stood in the gleaming lobby of Meridian Financial. My heart hammered against my ribs as the receptionist called up to Jake's department. "Mr. Sanderson will be down shortly," she said with a practiced smile. I smoothed my blouse, suddenly aware of how I must look. Eyes puffy from crying, hair hastily pulled back. But I straightened my spine. I wouldn't let Jake see me broken. The elevator doors opened, and there he was. He froze when he saw me, that same flash of fear crossing his face before he masked it with a smirk. "Stella, shouldn't you be on your honeymoon?" His voice carried across the lobby, drawing curious glances. I stepped forward, keeping my voice low but firm. "We need to talk. Now." "I have nothing to say to you." "Really? After what you did yesterday, you owe me an explanation." Jake's eyes darted to Sarah, then back to me. "I told the truth, that's all." "We know about Elizabeth," Sarah interjected. "We know you've been planning this." Something flickered in Jake's expression. Surprise? Maybe even panic. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a side hallway. "Not here," he hissed. Sarah moved to follow, but I shook my head slightly. I needed to face him alone. In a small conference room, Jake closed the door and turned to me. Up close, I could see the strain in his face, the nervous energy in his movements. "You have no idea what you're messing with," he said. "Then explain it to me," I demanded. "Why destroy my wedding? Why fake those photos?" I didn't fake anything. Stop lying. I slammed my palm on the table. I haven't seen you in 3 years, Jake. I never slept with you. Those pictures are fake, and I think Elizabeth helped you create them. He flinched at the name. Keep her out of this. Why? Is she your accomplice or your victim? Jake ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it sent an unwelcome pang through me. Once I'd loved this man. Once I'd believed his promises. You don't understand, he said, voice suddenly tired. I had to stop the wedding. Why? Because he's not who you think he is. Jake's eyes met mine, unexpectedly sincere. Daniel is dangerous, Stella. I laughed bitterly. Daniel? You're calling him dangerous after what you did to me? I know how it sounds, but I found something. At work. Files. Transactions. He lowered his voice. Daniel's involved in something illegal, something big. The room seemed to tilt slightly. You expect me to believe that? After you humiliated me in front of everyone I love? I tried calling you for weeks. You blocked my number. Of course I blocked you. You stalked me after we broke up. Jake stepped closer. I have proof, Stella, about Daniel. That's why they're after me now. They? Who's they? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. The color drained from his face as he read the message. I have to go. He moved toward the door. Jake, wait. They know I'm talking to you. His voice shook. I never wanted to hurt you, Stella. But you need to look into Daniel's work at Westlake Partners, the Osiris Project. He slipped out before I could respond, leaving me standing alone with a name I'd never heard before, and the first seed of doubt about the man I'd almost married. The Osiris Project? Sarah repeated, her brow furrowed. We sat in her car in the Meridian Financial parking lot, the air conditioning blasting against the midday heat. And you believe him? I stared out the window, watching as employees filtered in and out of the building. I don't know what to believe anymore. Stella, this is Jake we're talking about. The same man who followed you for months after you broke up. The same man who just destroyed your wedding with fake photos. But what if they weren't fake? The question had been gnawing at me since our confrontation. What if there's something bigger happening? He seemed genuinely scared. Sarah gripped the steering wheel, though the car wasn't moving. So what now? You're going to investigate Daniel based on Jake's word? I pulled out my phone, opening my photos. Daniel smiled back at me from countless images. Hiking trips, dinner dates, quiet mornings with coffee. The man I knew was kind, thoughtful, ethical to a fault. I need to know, I said finally. If there's even a chance Jake is telling the truth about Daniel being involved in something illegal? Then what? You forgive Jake for what he did? No, never. I turned to face her. But I need to understand why my life imploded. I can't move forward until I do. Sarah sighed, then nodded. Westlake Partners. Let's see what we can find. Back at my apartment, we spread our research across my dining table. Westlake Partners was a private equity firm where Daniel had worked before joining his current company 3 years ago, right around when Jake and I had broken up. Nothing unusual here, Sarah said, scrolling through their website. Standard corporate finance stuff. I chewed my lip, thinking. Daniel rarely talked about his time there. Said it wasn't a good fit. That's hardly suspicious. People leave jobs all the time. I know, but... I stopped, remembering something. Wait, there was a photo. From a company event. I dug through a box of memorabilia I'd kept from our relationship. Ticket stubs, cards, printed photos. Near the bottom, I found what I was looking for. Daniel at a corporate gala, champagne glass in hand, smiling stiffly beside a group of executives. This was at Westlake, I said, handing it to Sarah. Look at the banner behind them. She squinted at the image. Westlake Partners, pioneering tomorrow's solutions. She looked up. Generic corporate speak. But look at the logo in the corner. A small emblem sat in the bottom right of the banner. A stylized eye inside a pyramid. The Eye of Horus, I said. An Egyptian symbol. Osiris was an Egyptian god. Sarah's skepticism wavered. That's actually interesting. I grabbed my laptop, searching for Westlake Partners and Osiris. Nothing relevant appeared. I tried different combinations, different search engines. Still nothing. If there is an Osiris project, they've kept it well hidden, Sarah said. I sat back, frustrated. We need someone who knows more about Westlake's operations. What about Daniel's friends from there? Did you meet any? I thought for a moment. Just one. Terrell. Sarah's eyes widened. The same Terrell who had those photos at your wedding? Who works with Jake now? Yes. The connections were starting to form a pattern. Terrell left Westlake around the same time Daniel did. They weren't close, but they knew each other. And now Terrell works with Jake at Meridian. Sarah leaned forward. Stella, what if Jake isn't lying about Daniel, but he's not telling the whole truth either? What if all three of them are involved in something? The thought made my stomach turn. I'd spent 3 years building a life with Daniel, believing I finally understood what healthy love felt like after the chaos with Jake. What if it had all been a lie? My phone buzzed. A text from Ivy. Are you okay? Haven't heard from you since yesterday. Worried. Guilt washed over me. In my determination to uncover the truth, I'd shut out my sister. I need to talk to Ivy, I said. She might have insights we're missing. 2 hours later, Ivy sat across from me in my living room, her expression growing more troubled as I explained everything. Jake's warning, the Osiris connection, Terrell's involvement. This sounds like conspiracy theory territory, she said when I finished. Are you sure you're not just looking for a way to make sense of what happened? Of course I am, I admitted, but that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Ivy reached for my hand. Stella, I'm worried about you. First, Jake humiliates you at your wedding. Now you're investigating Daniel based on Jake's claims? This isn't healthy. So I should just accept that my fiancé thinks I cheated and move on? No, but... She hesitated. Maybe talk to Daniel directly? Ask him about Westlake? He won't answer my calls. Then give him time. This wild goose chase feels like you're avoiding the real issue. Rebuilding trust with Daniel. Her words stung because they contained truth. Part of me was afraid to face Daniel, afraid that even if I proved the photos were fake, the doubt they created could never be erased. I need to know who's lying to me, I said firmly. Jake, Daniel, or both of them, Ivy sighed. Just be careful. Jake was toxic for you. Don't let him pull you back into his orbit. After she left, I found myself staring at the photo from the Westlake Gala again. Something about it nagged at me. I zoomed in on the faces in the background, scanning the crowd of unfamiliar executives. And then I saw her, partially obscured but unmistakable. Elizabeth Turner, the woman from Jake's social media, standing near the back of the room watching Daniel. My phone pinged with an email notification. Unknown sender, subject line, Osiris documentation. Inside was a single file, a scanned document with the Westlake letterhead, dated 3 years ago. Most of it was redacted, but one paragraph remained clear. Project Osiris participants, DM and TT, have successfully completed Phase 1. Transition to Meridian Financial approved for continued asset development and monitoring of subject SW, DM Daniel Murphy, TT Terrell Thomas, and SW, Stella Wade, me. My hands shook as I stared at the document, reading those initials over and over. SW subject, SW me. I called Sarah immediately. I need you to come back, I said, my voice barely steady. Now. While waiting, I paced my apartment, my mind racing through every moment with Daniel. Our accidental meeting at that bookstore. How quickly he'd wanted to get serious. His interest in my work, my friends, my past. Had it all been calculated? Was our entire relationship just asset development? By the time Sarah arrived, rain was pounding against my windows, matching the storm inside me. Jesus, she whispered, reading the document. Who sent this to you? I don't know. The email address is just random numbers. Sarah looked up, her face pale. Stella, if this is real, if Daniel and Terrell were monitoring you as part of some project, then my entire relationship was a lie. Saying it aloud made my knees weak. I sank onto the couch. But why me? What could they possibly want with me? Your work, maybe? Sarah suggested. You do have access to sensitive financial data. I shook my head. I'm a mid-level analyst, nothing special. Sarah sat beside me, her expression hardening. We need to talk to Jake again. He clearly knows more than he's telling us. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I can't trust Jake either. For all I know, he's part of this too. Then who sent you this document? I stared at the rain streaming down my windows, feeling cornered. I don't know who to trust anymore. You can trust me, Sarah said firmly. Could I, though? The paranoia that had taken root was growing by the minute. Sarah had been my best friend for years, but she'd also known about Jake's plan to disrupt the wedding and hadn't warned me. What else might she be keeping from me? I need some air, I said suddenly, standing. I'm going for a walk. In this storm? Stella, I need to think, alone. I grabbed my raincoat and keys. I'll call you later. Outside, the rain soaked through my clothes within minutes, but I welcomed the physical discomfort. It gave me something to focus on besides the sickening betrayal. Without conscious direction, my feet carried me toward the park where Daniel had proposed 6 months ago. I stood under the gazebo where he'd knelt with the ring, water dripping from my hair, and tried to reconcile the man I loved with someone who could coldly monitor me for years. Thought I might find you here. I whirled around. Yolanda stood at the gazebo entrance, an umbrella in hand, concern etched across her face. How did you know? I asked. Sarah called me. She's worried about you. Yolanda stepped under the shelter, closing her umbrella. Said you received some disturbing information. I hesitated, suddenly wary. Did she tell you what it was? No, just that you were upset and left in the storm. She studied my face. What's going on, Stella? This isn't like you. The maternal concern in her voice nearly broke me. Yolanda had been my rock since college, the one who'd helped me through my darkest days after Jake. I don't know who to trust, I admitted, my voice cracking. Everyone's been lying to me. Yolanda guided me to a bench. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her everything. Jake's disruption, the fake photos, his warning about Daniel, the document linking Daniel and Terrell to something called the Osiris Project, with me as their subject. Yolanda listened without interrupting, her expression growing more troubled with each revelation. Have you considered, she said carefully when I finished, that Jake might have fabricated this document too? To drive a wedge between you and Daniel? Why would he go to such elaborate lengths? Because he never got over you, Stella. Some men can't stand seeing their ex-partners happy with someone else. I wanted to believe her simple explanation. It would be easier than accepting that my entire life might be built on lies. But what about Terrell? I pressed. Why would he help Jake unless there was something bigger happening? Yolanda sighed. I don't know, but rushing to conclusions won't help. You need evidence, not just suspicious connections. What kind of evidence? Something concrete linking Daniel to this Osiris project. Something that explains why you were targeted. She squeezed my hand. And you need to be careful. If there really is something sinister happening, these people won't want you digging. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time we left the gazebo. As Yolanda walked me home, a strange calm settled over me. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold determination. Thank you, I said when we reached my building. For listening, for not thinking I'm crazy. I've known you too long to think that. She hugged me tightly. Promise me you'll be careful. I will. After she left, I stood in my darkened apartment, staring at my reflection in the window. 3 days ago, I'd been a bride, full of hope. Now I was something else. A woman with nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Storage Unit 247, Riverside Facility. Code 3517, come alone. Answers about Osiris. I should have been scared. Instead, I felt a surge of grim purpose. Whatever game they were playing, I was done being a pawn. As I changed into dry clothes, my gaze fell on the photo from Daniel's nightstand that I'd taken when I moved out. Us laughing on a beach last summer. I turned it face down. The man I loved had never existed. The Riverside storage facility loomed against the night sky, a sprawling complex of identical metal units. Every instinct screamed that I was walking into a trap, yet here I was, guided by desperation and rage. I'd told no one where I was going. Not Sarah, not Ivy, not Yolanda. Trust had become a luxury I couldn't afford. Unit 247 was tucked in a back corner, away from the security cameras I'd spotted at the entrance. I punched in the code, 3517, and the padlock clicked open. I hesitated, hand on the door. Once I stepped inside, there would be no going back to blissful ignorance. Drawing a deep breath, I lifted the rolling door. The interior was pitch black. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam across the space. Metal shelving lined the walls, stacked with unmarked boxes. A desk sat in the center, its surface bare except for a laptop. Hello? My voice echoed in the confined space. No answer. I approached the desk cautiously. The laptop was open, its screen dark. When I touched the trackpad, it illuminated instantly. No password required. A video player filled the screen, paused on an image of an office. I pressed play. Subject demonstrates continued resistance to standard influence techniques, a male voice said off-camera. The timestamp showed a date from 2 years ago. The camera panned to reveal Daniel sitting behind a desk, reviewing what looked like a file. My file, I realized with a sickening jolt as I glimpsed my photo. Emotional attachment appears genuine. Daniel continued, speaking to someone recording. But her psychological profile makes her unpredictable. The trauma from her father's abandonment creates persistent trust issues that complicate the operation. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. Daniel's clinical dissection of my deepest wounds felt like a physical blow. Recommendation? Asked another voice. Terrell's. Accelerate timeline to phase 3. Proposal, integration of finances, full access to her professional network. The video ended, replaced by another. This one showed Daniel and Terrell in what appeared to be a conference room at Westlake. The girl is a complication, said an older man I didn't recognize. She was never part of the original plan. She's not a complication, Daniel argued. She's an opportunity. Her position at the firm gives us access to the Harrington accounts without raising flags. And if she discovers what you're doing? Daniel's expression hardened in a way I'd never seen before. She won't. I felt physically ill. The Daniel I knew, the man who held me through nightmares, who brought me soup when I was sick, who proposed with tears in his eyes, was a carefully constructed fiction. More videos followed. Daniel reporting on our relationship milestones, Terrell tracking my work activities, discussions of how to use my financial access for something they called the redistribution. I was so absorbed in the footage that I didn't hear the storage unit door closing behind me until the metallic clang echoed through the space. I spun around, heart hammering. A figure stood in the shadows. I wasn't sure you'd come. Elizabeth Turner stepped into the pool of light from the laptop screen. In person, the resemblance between us was even more striking. Same height, similar build, her features a slightly sharper version of my own. You, I breathed. You're the woman in the photos with Jake. And you're the woman they used me to impersonate. Her voice was bitter. We're both pawns, Stella, just in different games. You sent me the document and the text. She nodded. I've been trying to reach you for months, but they monitor your communications, your movements. They've been watching you since before you met Daniel. Why? What do they want from me? Access. Your firm manages accounts for people who've stolen billions. Westlake identified you as the perfect entry point. Emotionally vulnerable after Jake, professionally positioned to help them access certain accounts. So everything, my entire relationship with Daniel, was a setup? The words felt like glass in my throat. Not at first, Elizabeth said, surprising me. You were supposed to be a short-term operation, but Daniel broke protocol. He developed genuine feelings. Hope flickered briefly before she continued. That's what made him dangerous to them. A liability. They've been watching him too, making sure he stays on script. She gestured to the laptop. These videos were his insurance policy, his way of protecting himself if things went wrong. And Jake? Where does he fit in all this? Elizabeth's expression darkened. Jake was recruited to disrupt your wedding. Daniel was getting cold feet about using you. The wedding would have given you legal access to his accounts that would have exposed everything. So Jake was trying to protect me? The idea seemed absurd after what he'd done. In his way, but Jake has his own agenda. Always has. She checked her watch. We need to go. They'll know someone accessed this unit. Who is they? The people behind Osiris. The ones Daniel and Terrell answer to. She moved toward the door. Coming? I hesitated, looking back at the laptop with its damning evidence. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Trust no one. Her smile was grim. But right now, I'm the only one telling you the truth. As we slipped out into the night, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. We need to talk. I know what you found. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the place I proposed. Come alone. Elizabeth read the message over my shoulder, her face paling. He knows, which means they know. Good, I said, a cold resolve settling in my chest. It's time to end this. Stella, you don't understand what these people are capable of. No, I cut her off. They don't understand what I'm capable of. The park looked different in daylight. Peaceful, ordinary, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I arrived 20 minutes early, positioning myself on a bench with clear sightlines to all approaches. Elizabeth's warnings echoed in my head. They're more dangerous than you realize. I'd spent the night in a hotel under a false name, my mind racing through everything I'd learned. The pieces fit together in a sickening puzzle. Daniel using me for access to accounts, Jake disrupting the wedding, Elizabeth impersonating me in those photos. Everyone playing their assigned roles while I remained blissfully ignorant. At precisely 10 a.m., Daniel appeared on the path, alone as requested. My heart twisted painfully at the sight of him. He looked exhausted, stubble darkening his jaw, his normally immaculate clothes slightly rumpled. For a moment, I could almost believe he was just my heartbroken fiancé, not the manipulator from those videos. He spotted me and froze momentarily before approaching with measured steps. Stella. My name on his lips sounded different now. Cautious, almost reverent. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? I kept my voice steady despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. He sat beside me, leaving careful distance between us. You always have choices. That's what makes you... you. Save the philosophical bullshit, Daniel. I saw the videos. His shoulders slumped. I know. I set up alerts on that storage unit. When someone accessed it, I figured it had to be you. How long? I demanded. How long have you been using me? Daniel stared at his hands. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When Westlake first identified you as a potential asset, it was just business. Find someone at your firm, get close, gather information. And my psychological profile made me the perfect target. The words tasted bitter. Daddy issues, trust problems. I must have been so easy to manipulate. No. His head snapped up, eyes meeting mine with unexpected intensity. That's why everything changed. You weren't easy. You were careful, guarded. Every bit of trust you gave me felt earned, precious. He swallowed hard. Somewhere along the way, the operation became real for me. You expect me to believe you actually fell in love with me? While reporting on my vulnerabilities? While planning to use me to access accounts? Yes, The simplicity of his answer caught me off guard. That's why I started keeping evidence, making those recordings. I knew I'd need leverage if I ever tried to get out. Get out of what exactly? What is Osiris? Daniel glanced around nervously before leaning closer. A redistribution operation. Westlake identified wealthy clients who made their fortunes through exploitation or fraud. The plan was to access their accounts through various channels, including your firm, and redirect funds to selected causes. You're stealing money from people who stole it first. His eyes pleaded for understanding. I believed in the mission, Stella. Until I met you. Until I realized what it was costing. So Jake was telling the truth? You are dangerous? Daniel's expression hardened. Jake is working both sides. He was hired to stop the wedding, yes, but not to protect you. To protect the operation. My mind raced. But Elizabeth said, Elizabeth? Daniel's face drained of color. You've spoken to Elizabeth? Before I could respond, movement caught my eye. Sarah was walking briskly toward us, her expression grim. Sarah? I stood, confused. What are you doing here? Daniel rose beside me, tension radiating from him. You brought her into this? I didn't tell her I was meeting you. Sarah reached us, slightly breathless. Thank God you're both here. We have a problem. She turned to Daniel. They've moved up the timeline. They know Stella found the storage unit. The casual way she addressed him, the shared understanding in their exchange, it clicked into place with sickening clarity. You're part of this, I whispered, backing away from her. You've been part of this all along. Sarah's expression softened with regret. I was assigned to you before Daniel, to become your friend, to guide you toward the right opportunities. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd felt before. Sarah, my best friend for 5 years, my confidant, my maid of honor. All of it was a lie, I said, my voice breaking. Every single relationship in my life. Not all of it, Daniel insisted. What I feel for you is real. Real enough that I've been trying to find a way out for both of us. It's too late for that, Sarah said sharply. They've sent Terrell to tie up loose ends. We need to move now. As if summoned by her words, Terrell appeared at the far end of the park, walking purposefully in our direction. Stella, Daniel said urgently. I know you have no reason to trust me, but right now we need to leave. Together. I looked between them. Daniel, the man I'd loved, whose betrayal had shattered my world. Sarah, my closest friend, whose entire relationship with me had been an assignment. And Terrell, approaching with cold determination. In that moment of paralysis, my phone buzzed. A text from Yolanda. Whatever they're telling you, don't believe them. I have the real Osiris files. Come to me. No, I said, stepping back from both of them. This ends now, but not your way. I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. I've been recording everything. Your confessions, your explanations, all of it. And I've just sent it to multiple secure locations. Daniel's eyes widened. Stella, you don't understand what you've done. I understand perfectly. My voice grew stronger with each word. You all played me like a game. Used my past, my pain, my trust against me. But that ends today. I held up my hand as Terrell reached us, stopping him in his tracks. I've sent everything to the FBI. I lied, watching their faces pale. The videos, the documents, this conversation. Your entire operation is exposed. Sarah stepped toward me. Stella, please. Stay back. I backed away, addressing all three of them. You have about 10 minutes before this park is swarming with federal agents. I suggest you use them wisely. The look of genuine fear that crossed their faces told me my bluff had worked. As I turned and walked away, my phone buzzed again with another message from Yolanda. They're coming for you. Run. I ran until my lungs burned, weaving through side streets and alleyways. Yolanda's warning pounded in my head with each footstep. They're coming for you. They're coming for you. But who was they? Daniel and Sarah? Terrell? Some shadowy organization behind Osiris? And where did Yolanda fit into all this? I ducked into a coffee shop, ordering a drink I didn't want just to blend in. My hands trembled as I texted Yolanda, "Where are you? Where should I meet you?" Her response came immediately. "My house. Come through the back. Don't tell anyone." I hesitated. Trust had become a luxury I couldn't afford, yet I was running out of options. If Yolanda truly had the Osiris files, she might be my only chance at understanding the full scope of what I'd been caught in. 30 minutes and 2 bus transfers later, I approached Yolanda's modest suburban home from the rear, as instructed. The back door opened before I could knock. "Quickly," she urged, pulling me inside. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, her eyes darting nervously. "Were you followed?" "I don't think so." I collapsed into a kitchen chair, the adrenaline crash hitting me hard. "Yolanda, what's happening? How are you involved in this?" She placed a laptop on the table between us. "I worked for Westlake before I retired. I was in compliance, monitoring internal operations for legal violations. You knew about Osiris? About what they were doing to me?" Pain flashed across her face. "Not until recently. When you told me about the document you received, certain pieces clicked into place. Projects I'd flagged years ago but was told to ignore." She opened the laptop, typing in a complex password. I still had backdoor access to some systems. What I found... She shook her head. "Osiris wasn't what Daniel told you. It wasn't about redistributing stolen wealth." "Then what was it?" "A blackmail operation." She turned the screen toward me. "They identified wealthy, powerful people with secrets. Then they placed operatives, like Daniel, like Sarah, to gather compromising information. Sometimes financial, sometimes personal." I scanned the documents on screen. Lists of targets, operation parameters, payment structures. So they weren't stealing money. They were extorting it. Exactly. And you were valuable because your position gave them access to sensitive client information. Information they could leverage. My stomach twisted. "And Jake? Where does he fit?" "Jake was originally one of their operatives too. That's how you met him in the first place." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Our entire relationship was fabricated? From the very beginning? Yes, but something unexpected happened. Jake actually fell for you. He went off script, became possessive, volatile. They terminated his involvement but kept monitoring you through other channels. My mind reeled, reconstructing the past 3 years through this new lens. So when Jake showed up at my wedding, he was trying to stop you from legally binding yourself to Daniel, yes, but not to protect you, to get back at them for cutting him out. She sighed. Jake's not a hero in this story, Stella. He's just another manipulator with his own agenda. A knock at the front door made us both freeze. "Are you expecting someone?" I whispered. Yolanda shook her head, moving cautiously toward the entryway. I followed, heart pounding. Through the peephole, I saw Ivy standing on the porch, alone and visibly upset. "It's my sister," I said, relief washing over me. Yolanda opened the door. Ivy rushed in, throwing her arms around me. "Thank God," she breathed. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "How did you know I was here?" I asked, suddenly wary. "Sarah told me. She said you were in danger, that I should find you before they did." Alarm bells rang in my head. "Sarah told you?" "Ivy, Sarah is part of this. She's been lying to me for years." Confusion crossed Ivy's face. "What?" "No, Sarah called me in tears. She said she's been working undercover for the FBI, investigating Westlake and Osiris. That's why she got close to you." I looked to Yolanda, whose expression had turned unreadable. "The FBI isn't involved," Yolanda said firmly. "Sarah is lying to you, Ivy." "Actually," came a voice from the doorway. "She's not." Elizabeth stood there, holding up a badge. "Elizabeth Turner, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And you, Yolanda McGee, are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice." As if on cue, Agents swarmed into the house. One gently moved me and Ivy aside while others surrounded Yolanda. "I don't understand," I stammered. Yolanda was helping me. "Yolanda McGee isn't just former Westlake compliance," Elizabeth explained, her voice softening. "She's the architect of Osiris. The entire operation was her design." I stared at Yolanda, the woman who'd been my surrogate mother for years. "Is that true?" Yolanda's face hardened as agents cuffed her. "You have no idea what some people deserve, Stella. The wealthy, the privileged, they take and take while others suffer. Osiris was justice." "And me? Was using me justice too? You were a means to an end. Nothing personal." As they led her away, Elizabeth turned to me. "Sarah really is one of ours. We placed her years ago to infiltrate Osiris. When you became a target, her assignment expanded to protect you while gathering evidence." "And Daniel?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Recruited by Westlake legitimately, then drawn into Osiris. When he realized what was happening with you, he began cooperating with us. Those videos you found? He made sure they'd be discovered." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. So everything was still a lie, just a different kind of lie. "Not everything," said a familiar voice. Daniel stood in the doorway, Sarah beside him. The sight of them sent conflicting waves of anger and relief through me. "The operation was real," Sarah said quietly. "My assignment was real. But our friendship, Stella? That was never fake." "And us?" I asked Daniel, my voice barely audible. "The beginning was calculated," he admitted. "But everything since then, every moment, every feeling, that was real. I fell in love with you, Stella. That's why I started working with the FBI. To protect you. To deserve you." I looked between them. The fiancé who'd lied to get close to me but fought to protect me. The best friend who'd been placed in my life but had genuinely cared. My sister, the only person who'd been exactly who she claimed to be all along. "I need time," I said finally. "Time to process, to think, to decide what's real for me." Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here if you're ready." As the agents finished their work, Ivy put her arm around me. "Come stay with me. No pressure, no decisions, just space to breathe." Outside, the morning sun broke through clouds, casting long shadows across the lawn. I watched as Yolanda was placed in a government vehicle, as Elizabeth conferred with other agents, as Sarah and Daniel waited respectfully at a distance. For years, I'd been a pawn in someone else's game, my fears and vulnerabilities exploited, my trust betrayed. But standing there, I realized something had shifted inside me. The woman who had walked down that aisle in a white dress, desperate for approval and terrified of abandonment, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who would never again let others define her reality. "I'm ready to go," I told Ivy, turning my back on the chaos. Not running away this time, but walking deliberately toward a future that, for the first time in my life, would be entirely of my own making.
The cream-coloured envelope trembled in my hands as I traced the gold-embossed Howard family crest. After 2 years of dating Liam, I was finally being summoned to the family estate. Not for a casual visit, but for the formal announcement of our engagement. I'm Regina, and until 3 years ago, I was just another farm girl from Missouri with a sewing machine and big dreams. Now I run my own boutique in Manhattan, though you wouldn't know it from the way Vivian Howard's lips curl whenever someone mentions my little shop. "Don't let her get to you," Liam said, wrapping his arms around my waist as I stood at our apartment window. "Mother's just traditional." "Traditional?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "Regina, I heard her last week, Liam, at the country club." I turned to face him. That girl wouldn't know Valentino from Value Village. Those were her exact words. Liam's face fell. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a nervous habit I'd grown to love. "She'll come around once she sees..." "Once she sees what? That I can memorize which fork to use for the fish course? That I can pretend I spent summers in the Hamptons instead of helping my dad with the harvest? Once she sees how amazing you are, he said firmly, taking my hands in his, just like I did. The invitation specified cocktail attire for dinner, so I chose my newest design, a midnight blue sheath dress with subtle hand-beaded details. As we pulled up to the Howard estate in Liam's Range Rover, I smoothed the fabric nervously. "You look perfect," Liam assured me, but I barely heard him. I was too busy staring at the mansion looming before us, all Georgian columns and manicured hedges. A butler, an actual butler, opened the heavy wooden door. "Master Liam," he nodded. "Miss Regina." Inside, voices drifted from what I assumed was the drawing room. I recognized Vivian's immediately, sharp and clear like crystal. "Absolutely mortifying. Did you see what she wore to the Phillips garden party? Off the rack, I'm certain." I froze, my hand still on the doorframe. Liam hadn't heard. He was already walking ahead. Now, Vivian," came another voice, older, male. "The girl has potential, rough around the edges perhaps, but—" "Alice, please, she's a farmer's daughter. What potential could she possibly—" I pushed the door open, plastering on my brightest smile. "Good evening, everyone." The room fell silent. Vivian's perfectly coiffed head whipped around, her champagne glass pausing halfway to her red-painted lips. Beside her, an elderly gentleman, Ellis, I presumed, had the grace to look embarrassed. "Regina, darling," Vivian recovered quickly, air-kissing my cheeks. "That dress is interesting. Did you find it at one of those charming little boutiques downtown?" "Actually," I said, meeting her gaze steadily, "I designed and made it myself." "Did you really?" a new voice chimed in. A woman about my age stepped forward, her eyes bright with interest. "It's gorgeous! I'm Nora, Liam's sister." Before Vivian could interject, the butler announced dinner was served. As we moved to the dining room, I caught Vivian whispering to Ellis. "Don't worry," she murmured. "I have plans for the wedding. That girl won't embarrass this family again." My stomach clenched, but I held my head high. If Vivian Howard thought she could chase me away with snide comments and social warfare, she had seriously underestimated this farmer's daughter. Liam squeezed my hand under the table as we sat down. Looking around at the gleaming silver and crystal, I thought about my parents' kitchen table back home, scarred from years of hot pans and homework sessions. Dad would laugh if he could see me now, sitting straight-backed in this museum of wealth, preparing to do battle with a woman who probably spent more on her weekly manicure than he made in a month. But then I remembered what he always told me. "Regina, girl, you've got steel in your spine and fire in your heart. Don't let anyone make you forget that." As the first course arrived, some tiny precious thing involving quail eggs, I watched Vivian holding court at the head of the table. She thought she was protecting her family's legacy. She had no idea she was about to create her worst nightmare, a daughter-in-law with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. I smiled, reaching for the correct fork without hesitation. "Game on, Vivian! Game on!" The dinner stretched on like a silk thread, being pulled to its breaking point. Between each precisely timed course, Vivian orchestrated what felt like an interrogation disguised as polite conversation. "So, Regina," she said, dabbing her lips with a monogrammed napkin, "tell us about your education." "I studied fashion design at—" "Oh, community college, wasn't it?" Vivian interrupted, her smile sharp as a pin. "How quaint." "Actually," I replied, maintaining eye contact, "I started there, yes. Then I won a scholarship to Parsons." Ellis leaned forward, genuine interest crossing his weathered face. "Parsons? That's quite prestigious." "She didn't graduate," Vivian cut in quickly. "Did you, dear?" "Mother," Liam warned, but I touched his arm. "No, I didn't," I said. "I left in my final year to launch my business. Sometimes the best opportunities don't wait for perfect timing." Nora, sitting across from me, smiled encouragingly. And now you have your own boutique. That's incredible. A boutique. One of Vivian's friends, a woman with a face stretched too tight, tittered. In this economy? Speaking of economy, Vivian said, signalling for wine refills, Liam, darling, how is the merger going? I watched my fiancé shift into business mode, discussing million-dollar deals with the same ease I used to discuss weather patterns with my father during planting season. Under the table, my phone buzzed. A text from Hayden. Emergency at the shop. Collection samples arrived damaged. Call me. I excused myself, ignoring Vivian's pointed comment about proper dinner etiquette. In the hallway, I found a quiet corner near a massive oil painting. How bad? I asked when Hayden picked up. Remember that boutique in Paris, the one that wouldn't even look at our lookbook last season? They want to stock the entire spring collection, but they need to see samples next week. My heart raced. Next week? That's impossible. Maybe. Unless you're Regina from Missouri, who once made prom dresses for half her high school class in under 2 weeks. I laughed, then quickly lowered my voice as footsteps approached. Send me the details, having trouble with your little shop. Vivian's voice sliced through the air. She stood with Ellis, both holding fresh drinks. Not at all, I said, sliding my phone away. Actually, we just... Regina, dear, she interrupted again. I hope you understand that being a Howard means certain expectations, social obligations, charity boards. You can't be running around playing seamstress. I'm not playing anything, I said quietly. I'm running a business. Ellis cleared his throat. Vivienne, perhaps... No, Ellis. She needs to understand. Vivian stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming. The Howard name means something in this city. We don't work in retail. Times change, I said, straightening my spine. And so do families. Do they? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We'll see about that. Ellis, would you excuse us? I need to discuss the wedding plans with my future daughter-in-law. Ellis hesitated, then squeezed my shoulder as he passed. Good luck, my dear. Once he was gone, Vivian's facade cracked slightly. Listen carefully. The Howard bride always wears the family gown. It's been worn by every Howard woman for 4 generations. I actually plan to design... This isn't a negotiation. Her voice could have frozen champagne. You'll wear the gown, you'll join the right committees, and you'll close that little sweatshop of yours. That's the price of becoming a Howard. Before I could respond, voices approached. Liam and Nora, looking for us. Everything okay? Liam asked, his eyes darting between us. Wonderful, Vivian trilled, her society smile back in place. I was just telling Regina about our family traditions, the gown especially. You'll love it, dear. It's being altered as we speak. As we walked back to dinner, I caught a whispered exchange between Vivian and another guest in the shadows. Everything arranged? Yes, the alterations will ensure it's memorable. My hands clenched into fists. I thought of the Paris opportunity, of my dad's words about steel and fire, of every dismissive comment about my little shop. Liam touched my waist. You're shaking. What did she say to you? I forced a smile. Nothing I can't handle. And I meant it, because what Vivian didn't know was that this farmer's daughter had learned long ago. The best way to deal with someone trying to bury you is to show them how well you can grow. The next morning, Nora showed up at my boutique unannounced, clutching 2 coffee cups and wearing oversized sunglasses despite the cloudy day. I needed to escape, she said, collapsing onto my design room couch. Mother's in full wedding planning mode. I think she made the florist cry. I threaded a needle, continuing work on a prototype. Just the florist? She's losing her touch. Nora laughed, then grew serious. Listen, about the family gown. Let me guess. It's cursed, made from the tears of previous Howard brides. Worse. Nora removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. It's ugly as sin, and Mother knows it. That's why she's insisting you wear it. I set down my work. What do you mean? Remember Caroline, my cousin who married into the family 5 years ago? Nora pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Mother did the same thing to her, insisted on the gown, then had it altered to look absolutely horrible. Caroline looked like a Victorian lampshade. The photos were everywhere. What happened to Caroline? Divorced within a year. She couldn't handle the pressure, the constant criticism. Nora's voice cracked, just like my first husband. I moved to sit beside her. You were married? Briefly, to someone Mother didn't approve of. She wiped her eyes. An artist. Can you imagine? A Howard married to someone who actually created things with his hands. What happened? Mother happened. She has this way of crushing people, making them feel small, insignificant. She drove him away, then convinced everyone it was for the best. Nora gripped her coffee cup tighter. That's what she does. She controls everything, the family business, our social circles, our lives. And Liam just accepts this. Liam's different. He's the heir, the golden child. He doesn't see how she manipulates everything. Nora turned to face me. But you do, don't you? You see right through her. Before I could respond, Hayden burst in, arms full of fabric samples. Regina, the Paris buyers moved up the timeline. They want... Oh, hello. Nora, this is Hayden, my business partner, I said. Hayden, this is Liam's sister. The nice Howard, Hayden said, dumping the samples on my workbench. I've heard about you. Nora stood, examining the fabrics with genuine interest. These are gorgeous. Are they for your new collection? Yes, I said, then hesitated. Actually, would you like to see something? I led them to a locked room at the back of the shop. Inside, a half-finished wedding dress stood on a mannequin, layers of silk and hand-beaded lace flowing like water. Oh my God, Nora breathed. You're making your own dress. Mother will lose her mind, Hayden said gleefully. Mother can't know, Nora said quickly. Not yet, but Regina, this is incredible. It's not finished, I said, adjusting a panel. But when it is? It'll be your masterpiece, Hayden finished, and your Declaration of Independence. Nora touched the fabric reverently. You know what this reminds me of? The dress in that old photograph, the one of Grandmother on her wedding day, before the family gown tradition started. What happened to that dress? I asked. Nora's face darkened. Mother happened. She locked away anything that didn't fit her vision of what the Howards should be, including Grandmother's journals. Journals? Yes, about the family business. The real story, not the sanitized version Mother tells at parties. Nora's voice dropped. Did you know our fortune didn't come from old money? Grandmother built the company from nothing. She was a lot like you, actually. But Mother buried that truth, just like she buried the dress. Hayden whistled low. Now that would be quite a story to come out, especially with the society papers already sniffing around for wedding coverage. I stared at my unfinished dress, an idea forming. Nora, those journals. Where exactly did your mother hide them? In the East Wing study behind Grandfather's portrait. Why? Because, I said, a plan crystallizing in my mind. Maybe it's time for some family traditions to see the light of day again. Nora's eyes widened. You're not suggesting. I'm suggesting that your mother isn't the only one who knows how to orchestrate a perfect reveal. I turned to Hayden. How do you feel about a slight delay on those Paris samples? Hayden grinned. For this, I'll call them right now. As they left, Nora grabbed my hand. Regina, be careful. Mother's network runs deep. If she suspects anything, Don't worry, I said, looking at my dress. Sometimes the best way to fight silk with silk is to make sure you're wearing the stronger thread. Hold still, I muttered around a mouthful of pins, making final adjustments to my wedding dress. 3 weeks until the ceremony, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Regina! Hayden burst into the workroom, face flushed. You need to see this! She thrust her phone at me. On the screen was a photo of the Howard family gown, recently altered for my big day. It looked like someone had skinned Big Bird and turned him into a dress. The waist was impossibly small, the neckline would reach my ears, and the yellowed lace resembled mouldy doilies. Where did you get this? The seamstress's assistant? I may have bribed her with front-row Fashion Week tickets. Hayden zoomed in on details. Look at these alterations. They're designed to make you look like a laughingstock, I finished. Vivian's perfect revenge. My phone buzzed. Liam calling. I let it go to voicemail. You can't avoid him forever, Hayden said softly. He's going to notice something's wrong. I know. I returned to my dress, fingers tracing the intricate beadwork. But if I tell him what his mother's doing, he'll have to choose sides. The door chimed. Nora slipped in, carrying a leather-bound book. I got it, she whispered, though we were alone. Grandmother's journal. Mother was at her charity board meeting, so I had time to search the study. My hands trembled as I opened it. The pages were filled with elegant handwriting, telling a story very different from the Howard legacy Vivian preached. Listen to this, I read aloud. Today I sold my first dress, not to a society lady, but to a farmer's wife who saved 3 months' egg money to look beautiful at her daughter's graduation. Her smile when she saw herself in the mirror, that's worth more than all the silk in Paris. Keep reading, Nora urged. They say I'm bringing shame to the family name, selling dresses to common folk, but every woman deserves to feel extraordinary, whether she's dancing at the plaza or feeding chickens at dawn. Hayden whistled. So the great Howard fortune started with a dressmaker, who married into the family, Nora added. Just like you, Regina, and just like you, she refused to let anyone shame her for working with her hands. I closed the journal carefully. No wonder Vivian hid this. It destroys her whole narrative about old money and proper society. The door chimed again. This time it was Ellis looking worried. Regina, my dear, I'm glad I found you. He glanced at the dress on the mannequin but didn't comment. I've just come from lunch with Vivienne. She's planning something for the wedding, something more than just the dress. My stomach clenched. What kind of something? I don't know details, but she was meeting with a reporter from Social Pages. Something about an exposé on new money trying to buy class. She wouldn't, Nora gasped. That would hurt Liam too. She would, I said, remembering Caroline's fate. She'd rather humiliate her son than let him marry someone who threatens her control. Ellis stepped closer to my dress, admiring the craftsmanship. You know, this reminds me of Catherine's work. Catherine? Your grandmother, he said to Nora. We were friends before Vivian. Well, she would have loved this. And you, Regina, she would have recognised that same fire. I stood straighter. Ellis, how would you like to help us with a little historical restoration? What did you have in mind? I outlined my plan quickly. Ellis's eyes widened, then he broke into a broad grin. Catherine would have absolutely loved this, he said. Count me in. Me too, Nora said firmly. It's time someone stood up to Mother. Hayden was already on her phone. I'll call in some favours with the fashion press. If we're doing this, let's do it right. I returned to my dress, adding another layer of beading. Each crystal caught the light like a tiny act of defiance. My phone buzzed again. Liam, this time I answered. Regina, Mother wants us to come for a final fitting of the family gown tomorrow. I looked at my allies. Nora clutching her grandmother's journal, Ellis making notes in his phone, Hayden coordinating with press contacts. "Of course," I said sweetly. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." After hanging up, I touched the silk of my creation, the dress that would either be my triumph or my downfall. "You know," Ellis said quietly, "Catherine always said that true elegance isn't about who you were born to be, but who you choose to become." I smiled, picking up my needle. "Then let's give Vivienne a lesson in elegance she'll never forget." The Howard Mansion's fitting room felt like a torture chamber. I stood on a pedestal, drowning in yards of yellowed silk and ancient lace, while Vivienne circled like a shark scenting blood. "Perfect," she purred, adjusting the neckline to choke me further. "Absolutely perfect." The seamstress, a nervous woman named Marie, kept shooting me apologetic looks as she pinned the monstrosity according to Vivienne's instructions. "Mother," Nora said from her perch by the window, "don't you think the waist is a bit tight?" "Nonsense. Regina will simply need to watch her diet until the wedding." Vivienne's smile could have cut glass. "We want her to look her best in the family photos, don't we?" My phone buzzed in my purse. Probably Hayden with updates about our plan. I'd have to wait. "Speaking of photos," Vivienne continued, "I've arranged for exclusive coverage with Social Pages. They're very interested in our family traditions." "How thoughtful," I managed through gritted teeth. The door opened and Liam walked in. He stopped short, staring at me in the dress. "That's different from what I remember." "We've modernised it slightly," Vivienne said smoothly. "Regina, dear, turn around so Liam can see the full effect." I turned, the ancient fabric crackling like paper. Liam's face fell for just a second before he caught himself. "It's very traditional," he said diplomatically. My phone buzzed again. This time Vivienne noticed. "Popular today, aren't we?" She gestured to Marie. "Check that, dear. It might be important." Marie retrieved my phone, her eyes widening at the screen. It's from Fashion Weekly." Vivienne snatched the phone. "Fashion Weekly! Why would they be—" Her face went pale as she read the message. "Mother," Nora asked innocently, "is everything all right?" "What?" Vivienne's voice shook. "Is this about a feature article? About an exciting new designer bringing authenticity back to luxury fashion?" I met her eyes in the mirror. "Oh, that! They're doing a piece on my latest collection, the one Paris is interested in." "Paris?" Liam stepped forward. "Regina, that's amazing." "It's inappropriate," Vivienne snapped. "I thought we discussed this. Once you're a Howard—" The door burst open again. Ellis rushed in, waving a tablet. "Vivienne, have you seen this? It's already online." The article's headline glowed on the screen. "Rising star Regina takes fashion world by storm from farm to Fashion Week." "They can't," Vivienne whispered. "The Social Pages piece isn't ready. This ruins everything." "What Social Pages piece?" Liam asked sharply. Before Vivienne could respond, my phone buzzed with another message. Marie, still holding it, gasped. "Vogue wants an interview," she said. About revolutionising modern bridal wear?" Vivienne's head snapped up. "Bridal wear?" I stepped down from the pedestal, the horrible dress trailing behind me. "Yes, my new collection, the one I'm launching at my wedding." "You can't," Vivienne hissed. "You're wearing the family gown. It's tradition." "Actually," Ellis interrupted, pulling out Catherine's journal, "speaking of tradition, where did you get that?" Vivienne lunged for the journal, but Nora was faster. "Grandmother's journal," Nora said, opening to a marked page, about how she built the Howard fortune with a needle and thread just like Regina. Liam moved closer. "What are you talking about?" "Your grandmother," I said softly, "was a dressmaker. She believed fashion should be for everyone, not just the elite. She built an empire on that belief." "Until someone decided that truth wasn't sophisticated enough," Ellis added, looking pointedly at Vivienne. Liam turned to his mother. Is this true? Vivian's composure cracked. It was for the best. We needed to establish ourselves in society. Catherine's common background would have held us back, just like... She glared at me. Just like me? I stepped closer, letting the awful dress drag on the floor. A farmer's daughter who dares to create something beautiful, who believes, like Catherine did, that everyone deserves to feel extraordinary. You don't understand anything about our world, Vivian spat. No, I said, reaching for the zipper. I understand everything, including why you're so desperate to stop my collection from launching. I stepped out of the dress, revealing my own design underneath, a simple but elegant slip dress I'd worn just for this moment. Liam stared at me, then at the journal, then at his mother. The Social Pages article. What were you planning? Vivian's silence was answer enough. The wedding's in 3 weeks, I said calmly. Just enough time for everyone to decide who they really want to be. I turned to Marie. The dress is lovely, but I won't be needing it. I've got something else in mind. As I walked out, Nora falling into step beside me, I heard Liam's voice, harder than I'd ever heard it. Mother, we need to talk. My phone buzzed again. Hayden. Phase 1 complete. Ready for the real show? I smiled, thinking of my wedding dress waiting in its secret room. Absolutely ready. The wedding day dawned clear and bright. In the bridal suite of the Plaza Hotel, I sat perfectly still as Hayden put the finishing touches on my makeup. Vivienne's already making waves downstairs, she reported, applying another coat of mascara, telling everyone you had a regrettable emotional episode about the family gown. Let her, I said, watching my reflection. She hasn't seen anything yet. The door opened and Nora slipped in, looking stunning in her maid-of-honour dress. One of my designs, of course. Mother's got the family gown displayed in the entrance hall, with a little plaque about Howard tradition and everything. Right on schedule, Hayden grinned. Is Ellis in position? With the entire board of Fashion Weekly, Vogue and yes, Social Pages. Nora's eyes sparkled, plus about a dozen other fashion editors Mother didn't know he invited. My phone lit up with a text from Liam. Whatever you're planning, I trust you, and I love you. The past 3 weeks had been tense. After discovering his grandmother's journal, Liam had confronted Vivian about years of manipulation. She'd responded by threatening to withdraw his position in the family company. He'd responded by revealing he'd already started his own investment firm. A knock at the door made us all jump. Regina! It was my dad. You ready, sweetheart? I stood, still wrapped in a silk robe. Almost. Just need to get into my dress. Dresses, Hayden corrected with a wink, wheeling in 2 garment bags. Dad's eyes widened as we revealed the first dress, a perfect recreation of Catherine Howard's original wedding gown, reconstructed from photos in her journal. Simple, elegant, revolutionary for its time. This is for the ceremony, I explained, as Hayden and Nora helped me into it. The second one is for the reception. And Madame Vivienne? Dad asked, understanding in his eyes. Has no idea. I smoothed the vintage-inspired silk. Ready? The ceremony space fell silent as the doors opened. I heard gasps, not of horror as Vivienne had planned, but of awe. Through my veil I saw her face go from smug anticipation to shock as she recognised the design. Liam's eyes were wet as I reached him. Grandmother's dress, he whispered. The original Howard tradition, I whispered back. The ceremony passed in a blur of happiness and tears. Happy ones mostly, except for Vivienne's barely concealed rage. But the real show was yet to come. At the reception entrance, Vivienne had arranged her tableau. The family gown displayed like a museum piece, with a carefully worded history that erased Catherine's true legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, Ellis's voice rang out as guests gathered. Before we continue the celebrations, I believe we have another display to unveil. On cue, Panels slid back in the wall opposite Vivienne's display, revealing a stunning exhibition. Catherine's original sketches, photographs of her at work, and headlines from her era celebrating her success. At the centre stood my second dress, mounted on a mannequin. "What is the meaning of this?" Vivienne demanded, but her voice was drowned out by excited murmurs as fashion editors surged forward. "The true Howard legacy," Ellis announced, "a story of innovation, determination, and the belief that true elegance knows no social bounds. And now the bride will honour that legacy with her own design." I stepped out in my second dress, a modern masterpiece that echoed Catherine's aesthetic while blazing its own trail. The crowd erupted in applause. "You can't," Vivienne started, but Nora cut her off. "Actually, Mother, we can. The board voted this morning. Regina's designs will be the foundation of a new Howard fashion house, returning to Grandmother's original vision." "With a modern twist," I added, meeting Vivienne's eyes. "Because traditions should evolve, not entrap." Liam appeared at my side, proud and tall. "The papers are signed, Mother. It's done." Vivienne looked around wildly but found no allies. The society photographers she'd invited were too busy capturing my dress. The Social Pages reporter was interviewing Ellis about Catherine's recently discovered journal. Even her closest friends were excitedly discussing the exhibition. "Well played," she said finally, her voice tight. "You've managed to turn my son against me, expose our private history, and turn my own mother's common background into some sort of triumph." "No," I said softly. "I just refuse to let you bury someone else's truth to protect your lies." I touched the silk of my dress, my design, my statement, my victory. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding to enjoy." As Liam led me to the dance floor, I caught a glimpse of my father wiping his eyes, of Hayden directing photographers to the best angles, of Nora standing tall beside the exhibition of her grandmother's work. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building something so beautiful they can't help but watch it shine. The reception was in full swing when Hayden grabbed my arm, practically vibrating with excitement. "You need to see this. Now!" She pulled me away from a group of fashion editors and thrust her tablet in front of me. The article had just gone live. "Howard Fashion House Reborn, a Legacy of Innovation Restored." "Look at the shares," she whispered. I stared at the numbers. Our company's stock had jumped 30% in the hours since the exhibition unveiled. Pre-orders for my bridal collection were flooding in. "Regina," Ellis approached, beaming, "the Vogue editor wants to discuss a full feature, and Paris is asking about exclusive rights to your next collection." "Already?" I laughed, but stopped when I saw Vivienne approaching, her face set in grim determination. "A word," she said, not asking. "Privately." I followed her to a quiet corner, my dress rustling against the marble floor. For a moment, she just stared at me, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "You didn't just want to marry my son, did you?" she finally said. "This was always about taking over." "No," I replied. "This was about standing up for myself. The business success, that's just karma." "Karma?" she laughed bitterly. "You exposed our family's secrets, made me look like a fool." "You did that yourself. I just showed people the truth." "The truth?" Her voice rose slightly. "The truth is that I spent 30 years building our social position, 30 years making the Howard name mean something." "It already meant something," I said quietly. "Your mother-in-law built an empire on talent and vision. You're the one who tried to bury that legacy under fake pedigrees and social climbing." "Mother?" Nora appeared beside us, holding Catherine's journal. "The board wants to speak with you, all of them." Vivienne's face paled. "Now? They're particularly interested in discussing some financial decisions you made. Something about redirecting company funds to maintain social appearances." I watched Vivienne's carefully constructed world crumble in real time. Her hands shook as she reached for the journal. "Catherine's final entries," Nora explained, opening to a marked page. "Detailed records of the company's original structure, the one you altered after she died." "You had no right," Vivian started. "Actually," Liam's voice cut in as he joined us, "as the majority shareholders now, we had every right. The board's voting on new leadership tonight." "You're voting me out, your own mother." "No," I said, surprising everyone. "We're offering you a choice." Hayden appeared with another tablet, showing designs I'd been working on secretly. "A new line," I explained, "combining classic Howard elegance with modern sophistication. We need someone who understands both worlds to help position it. You want me to work? For you?" Vivian looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "With me," I corrected. "Your social connections combined with my designs, Catherine's vision of fashion for everyone, marketed to both Main Street and Madison Avenue." "It's a good offer, Mother," Liam said softly. "Better than you gave others." The string quartet started playing again, filling the silence as Vivian stared at the designs. I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or remembrance. "Catherine showed me her work once," she said quietly. "Before I married into the family, I thought it was beautiful. But everyone said old money didn't work with their hands." "Times change," I said, echoing her words from weeks ago. "And so do families." Vivienne looked around the reception, at the fashion editors eagerly examining the exhibition, at the society photographers capturing every detail of my dress, at the mixing of worlds she'd tried so hard to keep separate. "I'll need time to consider," she said finally. "Of course." I turned to rejoin the party, then paused. "Oh, and Vivienne, the family gown?" "Yes. We're donating it to the Fashion Institute as a historical example of how far we've come." For a moment, I thought I saw the ghost of a smile cross her face. The rest of the night passed in a blur of dancing, champagne, and congratulations. My father twirled me around the dance floor, whispering, "Your mama would be so proud, baby girl." Later, as Liam and I swayed to a slow song, he murmured, "You could have destroyed her, you know. Why didn't you?" I watched Vivienne across the room, actually listening as Hayden explained our marketing strategy. Because sometimes winning isn't about destroying what's there. It's about building something better. "Speaking of building," he grinned, ready to announce the other news. I touched my stomach, still flat but holding our secret. "Let's wait. Your mother can only handle so much change at once." The photographer's flashes caught my dress, making the beadwork sparkle like stars. In that moment, I felt Catherine's spirit everywhere. In the fabric, in the air, in the future we were weaving together, one stitch at a time. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fresh paint through the open windows of Howard Fashion House's new flagship store. I adjusted the vintage dress form in the window display, the centerpiece of our grand opening. "A little to the left," Vivian called from the sidewalk. "We want the morning light to catch the beadwork." I smiled, remembering how she'd once dismissed my little shop. Now here she was, at dawn, helping perfect every detail of our launch. "The press is already lining up," Hayden announced, rushing in with coffee for everyone. "And you'll never guess who's out there. That same Social Pages reporter Vivienne, hired for the wedding hit piece. She looks absolutely desperate for an interview." "Let her wait," Vivienne said, surprising us both. "Quality publications first. That's what Catherine would have done." The door chimed as Nora entered, carrying a familiar leather-bound journal. "Found more sketches in Grandmother's things. Wait until you see these designs. They were decades ahead of their time." "Speaking of time," I said, checking my watch, "where's Liam? He's supposed to be here for the ribbon cutting." "Right here," his voice called from the back. He emerged carrying a large framed photo, one I hadn't seen before. Ellis found this in his archives, thought it deserved a special place. The photograph showed Catherine in her workroom, surrounded by fabrics and dreams, her face bright with purpose. Below it, a simple quote from her journal. "Fashion isn't about who you were born to be, but who you choose to become." "Perfect spot for it," I said, pointing to the wall behind the main counter, right where everyone can see it. "Regina!" My father's voice boomed as he entered, still looking slightly out of place in the suit I'd designed for him. "The delivery's here!" We all rushed outside to where a truck was unloading racks of clothing. My newest collection, inspired by both farm life and high fashion. Work shirts reimagined in silk, denim elevated with hand-beading practical shapes transformed into elegant statements. "It's really happening," Nora whispered, touching a sleeve reverently. Vivian stepped forward, adjusting a display piece with practiced precision. "The proportions are perfect, and the craftsmanship." She paused, meeting my eyes. Catherine would have been proud. "Thank you," I said softly, recognizing how much those words cost her. The morning flew by in a whirlwind of final preparations. As opening time approached, I slipped into the back office for a quiet moment. On my desk sat a small gift box with a note, "For the next generation of Howard designers." V. Inside was a delicate silver thimble, clearly antique. A small note explained, "Catherine's first tool, found in her things, thought you should have it." "Everything okay?" Liam asked from the doorway. I showed him the thimble, watching his eyes soften with understanding. "Mother's full of surprises lately," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "Speaking of surprises, how's our little secret doing?" I touched my slightly rounded stomach, hidden by the clever draping of my dress. "Growing strong, like everything else around here." "Ms. Regina," Ellis called, "it's time!" We stepped out to find the sidewalk packed with press, fashion editors, and eager customers. Vivian stood ready with the ceremonial scissors, looking every inch the proud matriarch, but different now, somehow, softer around the edges. "Before we open," she announced to the crowd, "I want to say something. For years, I thought I was protecting the Howard legacy. Instead, I was hiding it. Today, thanks to my daughter-in-law's vision, we're not just restoring that legacy. We're evolving it." She turned to me, offering the scissors. "Would you do the honours?" As I cut the ribbon, cheers erupted. Cameras flashed, the doors opened, and people flooded in, touching the clothes with reverent hands, exclaiming over the designs, pointing to Catherine's photograph. "Well," my father said, appearing at my side, "not bad for a farmer's daughter." I watched Vivian expertly guide fashion editors through the collection, saw Nora explaining Catherine's influence to reporters, noticed Hayden tracking sales on her tablet with growing excitement. "You know what, Dad?" I said, touching the thimble in my pocket. "I'm not just a farmer's daughter anymore. I'm a designer, a businesswoman, a wife." I patted my stomach secretly. "And soon I'll be a mother. But most importantly, I'm myself." The morning light streamed through the windows, catching the beadwork just as Vivian had planned. In its glow, I saw the future we were building. Not just a fashion house, but a home for creativity, authenticity, and second chances. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in tearing something down, but in building something so magnificent that everyone rises with it, even those who once tried to make you fall.
I always thought betrayal would feel like a sudden stab to the heart. Instead, it crept in slowly, wrapped in the quiet whispers of a Sunday family dinner. My name is Veronica, and I was 18 when I learned that family loyalty had a price tag, specifically, the price of my college education. "We need to discuss something important," Mom said, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her wine glass. Dad sat beside her, avoiding my eyes, while Aunt Maria perched on the armchair like a queen about to deliver a royal decree. I should have known something was wrong when they invited me into Dad's study after dinner. That room was reserved for serious conversations, like when Grandpa died, or when Dad lost his job at the firm. "Honey," Mom started, her voice trembling. "We've been thinking about the future, about college." "Your cousin Haley has shown remarkable potential," Aunt Maria cut in, her voice smooth as honey but twice as sticky. "She's been accepted into several prestigious universities." I nodded, confused. "That's great. I'm still waiting to hear back from MIT and Georgia Tech myself." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush me. "The thing is," Dad finally spoke, his words careful and measured, "we've decided to reallocate some resources." Reallocate? The word felt foreign on my tongue. "Your college fund?" Mom blurted out. "We're giving it to Haley." The world didn't stop. The earth didn't shake. Instead, everything became crystal clear, like someone had finally wiped clean a foggy window. "Your what?" I managed to keep my voice steady, though my hands were shaking under the desk. "It makes perfect sense." Aunt Maria leaned forward, her expensive perfume suffocating me. "Haley's been accepted to Harvard. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Your parents understand that supporting her education is an investment in our family's future." "And what about my future?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "Oh, sweetie." Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. "You're so practical. You can start at community college, work part-time. You've always been good at figuring things out." "Unlike Haley," Aunt Maria added, "who needs to focus entirely on her studies." I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "So, because I'm capable, I get punished? Because I'm responsible, I lose my chance?" "You're not losing anything," Dad protested weakly. "You're helping family." "Family?" I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "Does Haley know that you're giving her my future?" "She'll be so grateful," Aunt Maria beamed. "She's always looked up to you." I walked to the window, watching our neighbor's cat prowl across the garden. Behind me, they continued talking about logistics, about how this was the right decision, about how I'd understand someday. "How much?" I asked, turning back to face them. "What? How much of my fund are you giving her?" Mom looked at Dad, who cleared his throat. "All of it. 85,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. 8 years of saving. Every birthday check from grandparents. Every summer job. Gone. "Veronica," Mom started again, but I held up my hand. "I need some air." I walked out of the study, past the living room where Haley sat texting on her phone, completely oblivious to how her future had just been bought with my dreams. In my room, I opened my laptop and started typing. If they thought I would roll over and accept this, they didn't know me at all. I had straight A's in advanced math and science. I'd been tutoring since sophomore year. I knew how to build websites. My phone buzzed. A text from Patrick, my computer science teacher, who'd become a mentor of sorts. "How'd the family dinner go?" I stared at the message, then typed, "Can we meet tomorrow? I need business advice." His reply came instantly. "Coffee shop, 4 p.m. Perfect. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. The girl staring back wasn't a victim. She was someone who'd just been underestimated for the last time. They thought they were teaching me about family loyalty. Instead, they were about to learn a lesson about consequences. I opened a new document and started typing. Business plan. Online tutoring platform. Let Haley have Harvard. I had something better. Motivation and revenge, I was discovering, made an excellent business partner. "You're either incredibly brilliant or completely insane," Patrick said, stirring his coffee as he reviewed my business plan. "Maybe both." The coffee shop buzzed with afternoon activity, providing perfect cover for our conversation. 3 months had passed since that fateful family dinner, and I'd spent every free moment building my secret empire. The market's saturated with tutoring services, he continued. But your approach? He tapped the screen where my prototype website glowed. This is different. Most platforms just connect tutors with students, I explained, leaning forward. Mine provides structured courses, progress tracking, and personalized study plans. Plus, I'm focusing exclusively on STEM subjects. And you're doing this while maintaining a 4.0 at community college? I smiled tightly. Sleep is overrated. Veronica, Patrick's voice softened. You don't have to prove anything to them. I'm not. I started, but he cut me off with a look. I've known you since you were 15. This isn't just about building a business. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Mom's text read, Family dinner tonight. Haley wants to share her Harvard experiences. Speaking of proving things, I muttered, showing Patrick the message. Are you going? Have to. Missing family dinners would raise suspicions. That evening, I sat through another excruciating performance of The Haley Show, picking at my mother's lasagna while my cousin dominated the conversation. And then my professor said my paper was the most insightful analysis he'd read all semester, Haley gushed, twirling her fork dramatically. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Aunt Maria beamed. Isn't it amazing what she's achieving? I bit back the urge to mention that my online calculus course had the highest student satisfaction rating in the state. Instead, I smiled and asked, How's the social life, Haley? Oh my God, the parties are incredible. Last weekend. Parties? I interrupted innocently. I thought you needed to focus entirely on your studies. A moment of awkward silence followed, before Dad cleared his throat. How's community college, Veronica? It's fine, I said, stabbing a piece of garlic bread. I'm managing. She's always been so practical, Aunt Maria said, as if practical was a terminal illness. Not everyone is meant for prestigious universities. Under the table, my hands clenched into fists, my phone vibrated, a notification from my business dashboard. Another 50 students had signed up for my advanced physics course. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to use the bathroom. In the hallway, I checked my phone. The new enrollments would add another $5,000 to my monthly revenue. I was already making more than Dad's salary, and nobody had a clue. You okay? Mum's voice startled me. She stood in the hallway, concern etched on her face. Just tired. Working extra shifts at the library. She touched my arm. I know things have been hard, but we're so proud of how you're handling everything. I wanted to laugh, or cry, or both. Thanks, Mum, I managed, then escaped back to the dining room. Later that night, I met Patrick at his home office. He'd been letting me use it as my business headquarters after hours. Your server crashed again, he said by way of greeting. You need better infrastructure. I dropped into a chair, exhausted. I know. The growth is happening faster than I anticipated. Speaking of growth, he turned his monitor toward me, showing a spreadsheet. You've hit 6 figures in monthly revenue. It's time to incorporate properly. And risk them finding out? Veronica, he leaned back, fixing me with a serious look. You're not just running a side hustle anymore. This is becoming a real company. You need to protect yourself legally. I stared at the numbers on the screen. He was right, of course. What had started as a revenge-fueled project was evolving into something bigger than I'd imagined. Fine, I conceded. But we keep it quiet. As far as my family knows, I'm still just scraping by at community college. While secretly building an education technology empire, Patrick smirked. You know, someday, this is going to make one hell of a story. Someday, I agreed, opening my laptop to review student feedback. But for now, let them think what they want. Let them believe Haley is the family's only hope for success. You're playing a dangerous game. I thought about the look on Aunt Maria's face when she'd dismissed me earlier. about the way my parents had given away my future without a second thought. No, I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard as another batch of enrollment notifications came in. I'm not playing at all. This is dead serious. The news broke during another mandatory family dinner, but this time, the star of the show was conspicuously absent. Haley's taking a break from Harvard, Aunt Maria announced, her voice brittle as thin ice. Just for a semester. To find herself. I paused mid-bite, my fork hovering over my plate. Mom and Dad exchanged worried glances. Find herself? Dad asked carefully. What exactly does that mean? She's been under so much pressure. Aunt Maria dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. The academics, the social obligations, it's all so demanding. The parties must have been exhausting, I muttered into my water glass. Mom shot me a warning look. What about the money? The silence that followed was deafening. Gone, Aunt Maria whispered. All of it. The tuition, the housing deposits, the emergency fund. She needed to maintain a certain lifestyle to network properly. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another notification about my company's growing user base. I'd just hired my 20th employee last week. But surely there's something left. Dad's voice had taken on the same desperate tone I remembered from when he'd lost his job. She's in Bali, Aunt Maria said, as if that explained everything. Finding her spiritual center. I couldn't help myself. Spiritual center? That's what we're calling it when someone blows through $85,000 in less than 2 years? Veronica! Mom scolded. No, let her speak. Aunt Maria's eyes narrowed. You've always been jealous of Haley's opportunities. I laughed, and the sound seemed to startle everyone at the table. Jealous? Of what? Her ability to waste other people's money? You don't understand the pressures. You're right, I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I don't understand pressure. I only work full-time while taking a full course load at community college. What would I know about pressure? I left the dining room, but not before hearing Dad's quiet question to Aunt Maria. What about paying it back? In my old bedroom, I opened my laptop and checked my company's latest figures. We'd just crossed the $1 million monthly revenue mark. Patrick had been right about incorporating. We now had offices in 3 cities. A soft knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Come in. Mom entered, looking tired. That wasn't very kind downstairs. Neither was giving away my college fund. She sat on my bed, smoothing the comforter with trembling hands. Your father and we're in trouble, Veronica. What kind of trouble? Financial, she whispered. We took out a second mortgage to help with Haley's expenses. Maria promised to pay us back, but now... I closed my laptop slowly. How bad is it? We might lose the house. The irony was almost too perfect. Here I sat, a secret millionaire, watching my parents reap what they'd sown. Have you talked to a financial advisor? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. We can't afford one. Mom's laugh was hollow. We can barely afford groceries. My phone buzzed again. A text from Patrick. Major tech company wants to acquire us. 9 figures. Call me. Maybe I can help, I said carefully. I've been studying financial management at school. Mom patted my hand. That's sweet, honey, but this is beyond a student's understanding. We need a miracle. I bit back a smile. A miracle, or just a daughter they'd underestimated? Later that night, I met Patrick at our usual spot. They want to buy us out completely, he said, sliding the offer letter across the table. You could walk away now, never work another day in your life. I stared at the number of zeros on the page. Not yet. This is about your family, isn't it? They need to understand, I said, pushing the letter back to him. Counteroffer. I want to retain majority control. Patrick studied my face. You're planning something. Let's just say Karma's about to make a house call. On my drive home, I passed Aunt Maria's house, its pristine lawn and luxury cars a monument to appearances. Soon, those appearances would crumble, just like Haley's Harvard dreams. My phone rang. Mom again. Honey, I hate to ask, but do you have any savings? Even a few hundred would help right now. I smiled into the darkness. Actually, Mom, I might have a solution, but we need to talk about terms and conditions. Terms and conditions? Yes, I said, pulling into our driveway. It's time for a family meeting. A real one this time. The stage was set. My revenge wasn't just about money anymore. It was about teaching them the true cost of their choices. And I was about to give them one expensive lesson. Summa cum laude, the dean announced, and I walked across the stage to receive my engineering degree. From my seat in the audience, I could see Mom and Dad clapping politely, still unaware that I'd finished my 4-year degree in just under 3 years, or that I was now worth 8 figures. I'm so proud of you. Mom hugged me after the ceremony. A community college degree is nothing to be ashamed of. I caught Patrick's eye across the crowd. He was trying not to laugh. Thanks, Mom. Actually, there's something I need to tell you. Veronica! Aunt Maria's voice cut through the crowd like a knife. She was wearing designer sunglasses that probably cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage payment. How quaint. Is this the whole graduation ceremony? Maria, Dad said weakly, I didn't know you were coming. Of course, family supports family. She air-kissed my cheeks. Have you heard from Haley? She's starting a yoga retreat in Thailand. Very exclusive. Still finding herself? I asked innocently. That's quite a long search. Before Aunt Maria could respond, my phone rang. I stepped away to take the call. The acquisition papers are ready, my lawyer said. Are you sure about the terms? Absolutely. Send them over. When I returned, Mom was making dinner plans. We should celebrate. Maybe that new Italian place. Too expensive, Dad muttered. Actually, I said, I'd like to host dinner at my place. They all stared at me. Your place? Mom frowned. But you live in the dorm. Not anymore. I have an apartment downtown, near the tech district. How can you afford? Dad started. That's part of what I want to discuss, I interrupted. 7 o'clock? Patrick will be joining us. Your professor? Aunt Maria scoffed. Why would he? My business partner, I corrected. And trust me, you'll want to hear what we have to say. Later that evening, I watched their faces as they entered my penthouse apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city skyline. Modern art hung on the walls, and the furniture was sleek and expensive. There must be some mistake, Mum whispered. This can't be. Dinner's ready, I announced, leading them to the dining room where Patrick was already seated. I hope everyone likes Japanese fusion. Veronica, Dad's voice was strained. What's going on? I took my seat at the head of the table. Remember when you gave my college fund to Haley? You said I was good at figuring things out. But this, Aunt Maria gestured around. This is impossible. Actually, Patrick spoke up, it's quite impressive. Veronica built a multi-million-dollar education technology company while completing her engineering degree. In 3 years, no less. The silence was delicious. Multi-million? Dad choked on his water. I opened my laptop and pulled up our company website. We have over 200,000 students worldwide. Major tech companies are fighting to acquire us. And yes, I graduated today. From Georgia Tech's online engineering program, not community college. Mom's hands were shaking. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. You all decided who I was 3 years ago. The practical one, the responsible one, the one who would understand having her future stolen. We never stole, Aunt Maria began. $85,000, I cut her off. That's what you took from me. Would you like to know what I turned it into? I slid the acquisition offer across the table. Dad's face went pale as he read the number. This is more money than Haley burned through? Yes. More than this apartment cost? Definitely. More than your second mortgage? Absolutely. How did you know about the mortgage? Mom gasped. I know everything, I said calmly. About the loans, the credit card debt, the missed payments, just like I know Aunt Maria has been lying about her finances for years. Aunt Maria stood up abruptly. This is absurd. I don't have to listen. Sit down. My voice was steel. You haven't heard my offer yet. Offer? Dad looked up from the paper. Yes. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. I'm prepared to help you all out of this financial mess, but there will be terms, conditions, and this time, I'll be the one setting them. Patrick raised his glass. I believe this is what they call a turning of the tables. You can't be serious, Aunt Maria sputtered. Oh, but I am, I said, opening a folder containing carefully prepared documents. Now, who would like to hear my terms? The look on their faces was worth every sleepless night, every missed party, every moment of the past 3 years. Revenge, it turned out, was best served with a side of success. These terms are outrageous. Aunt Maria slammed the document down on my dining table. You can't possibly expect us to agree to this. Actually, I leaned back in my chair, I expect you'll find them quite reasonable, considering the alternative is bankruptcy. Dad was still reading, his hands trembling slightly. Full financial transparency, monthly audits, approval needed for any purchase over $500. And this ridiculous clause about family dinners? Aunt Maria sneered. My favorite part, I smiled. No more mandatory family gatherings unless I initiate them. No more comparing cousins. No more talk about Haley's spiritual journey. She's finding herself, Aunt Maria protested. On my parents' dime, I countered. Speaking of which, let's discuss the repayment schedule. Mom hadn't spoken yet. She sat there, staring at her hands, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. The interest rate is fair, Patrick pointed out. Much better than they'd get from any bank, especially given their current credit scores. You checked our credit? Dad looked up, aghast. I did my due diligence, I said. Just like you should have done before giving away my future. The doorbell rang. Right on schedule. That would be my lawyer. I stood up. She'll walk us through the paperwork. Lawyer? Aunt Maria's face went pale. This is a family matter. Family matters stopped being private when you convinced my parents to take out a second mortgage for Haley's designer wardrobe. The lawyer, Sarah, was crisp and professional as she laid out additional documents. The terms are non-negotiable, she explained. Miss Veronica will assume the second mortgage and clear all outstanding debts in exchange for financial oversight and specific behavioral conditions. Behavioral conditions? Mom finally spoke. Like we're children? Like you're people who made very poor decisions, I corrected, and need supervision to avoid making them again. And if we refuse? Aunt Maria challenged. I pulled up the bank's foreclosure notice on my laptop. Then Mum and Dad lose the house next month. Your credit card debt goes to collections. And that audit the IRS is planning for your consulting business, Aunt Maria? It won't be pretty. The color drained from her face. How did you? I have resources now, I said simply. And unlike some people, I know how to use them. Dad was reading the final pages. You'll pay off everything? Just like that? Not just like that. I pointed to the signature line. You'll be on a strict budget. No more enabling Haley. No more secret loans. And you'll all attend financial literacy classes. This is humiliating, Aunt Maria stood up. More humiliating than bankruptcy? Patrick asked mildly. Because that's where you're headed without Veronica's help. Mum reached for the pen with shaking hands. We don't have a choice, do we? You always have a choice, I said quietly, just like you had a choice 3 years ago. The next hour was filled with signatures and notarizations. With each page, I watched my family's autonomy slip away, just like my college fund had slipped away that Sunday evening. One more thing, I said, as Sarah packed up the documents. Haley comes home. What? Aunt Maria's head snapped up. Part of the agreement. I'm buying her a ticket back from Thailand. She gets a job, a real one, and starts paying back what she owes. She's not ready. She's been ready her whole life, I cut in. She just never had to be responsible because you were all too busy protecting her from consequences. After they left, Patrick poured us both a drink. That was brutal. It was necessary. I took a sip. They needed to understand. Understand what? That actions have consequences. That responsibility isn't a punishment, it's a privilege. That the practical one, the responsible one, the one they all underestimated. I smiled into my glass. She was paying attention all along. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We never meant to hurt you. I typed back. I know, but you did. Now we all learn from it. Patrick raised his glass. To karma? To karma. I clinked my glass against his. And to the next family dinner, on my terms this time. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in Thailand, my cousin was about to receive a very interesting email about her all-expenses-paid trip home. The thought made me smile. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying people. Sometimes it's about forcing them to rebuild themselves, brick by painful brick. And I would be there, watching every step of the construction. Your credit card was declined, I said, sliding the plastic across the kitchen counter to Mom. Want to explain the attempted purchase at Nordstrom? 2 weeks had passed since the agreements were signed. Mum stood in my apartment's kitchen, looking like a teenager caught sneaking out. It was just a small thing, she mumbled. A dress for Haley's welcome home dinner? I pulled up the purchase attempt on my tablet. $479 isn't small, Mum, and it's definitely not within the approved budget. She needs something nice for her first day at the office job you arranged. She needs to learn the difference between wants and needs, I corrected. Something you and Aunt Maria never taught her. The elevator dinged, and Patrick walked in with several shopping bags. Mission accomplished. Picked up everything on the list. What's that? Mom asked. Haley's work wardrobe, I said. From Target and H&M, professional, appropriate, and within budget. Target? Mom looked horrified. But she's never had to shop at Target? Never had to check price tags? Never had to work for anything? I started unpacking the bags. That's exactly the problem. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Maria's asking for an advance on next month's allowance. Excuse me, I told Mom, stepping into my office to make a call. Hello? Aunt Maria answered on the first ring. No advances, I said firmly. But the country club dues are not covered in the agreement. We discussed this. Your membership has been cancelled. How am I supposed to maintain my social connections? The same way normal people do, through work and genuine relationships, not overpriced cocktails and gossip. Back in the kitchen, Mom was fingering one of the blouses Patrick had bought. It's actually quite nice. Life doesn't end when you shop at regular stores, Mom. I sat down beside her. How are the financial literacy classes going? She blushed. Did you know we've been calculating interest wrong all these years? No wonder the credit cards got so out of control. Speaking of control, Patrick interjected. Haley's flight lands in 3 hours. Mom straightened up. I should go pick her up. No, I said firmly. Remember the agreement. I'm picking her up. Alone. 3 hours later, I stood at the international arrivals gate, watching as my cousin emerged, looking tanned and considerably less designer-clad than when she'd left. Veronica? She blinked in surprise. Where's Mom? Your welcome wagon has new management. I gestured toward the exit. Let's go. In the car, she fidgeted with her worn backpack. Mom said you're, rich now? And you're helping everyone? I'm helping them help themselves, I corrected, pulling onto the highway. Starting with you. Me? But I'm fine. I just needed some time to… Find yourself? In 5-star resorts using stolen money? She fell silent. Here's your new schedule. I handed her a folder. Work starts Monday at 8 a.m. sharp. You'll be an administrative assistant at a real estate office. Salary is $35,000 a year. That's nothing. My handbag collection alone was worth, I interrupted. Past tense. You'll live in the apartment I've arranged, with a roommate. Rent will be deducted from your salary, along with a reasonable repayment plan for the money you wasted. You can't do this! I pulled into a parking spot at her new apartment building, modest but clean and safe. Actually, I can. Your mother signed the papers. You can either accept these terms, or… I shrugged. Well, Thailand might look welcoming, but your passport has been flagged. You didn't. I did. Welcome to responsibility, cousin. Upstairs, her new roommate Rachel was waiting, a sensible nursing student I'd carefully selected. Your room's through there, Rachel pointed. We split utilities and groceries. House rules are on the fridge. Haley looked around the simple apartment, then at her single suitcase of remaining possessions. For the first time, I saw something crack in her entitled facade. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. That's why you have Rachel, I said. And mandatory life skills classes twice a week. You'll learn. And if I refuse, then you can explain to the police about the fraudulent credit cards you opened in your mother's name. Her head snapped up. How did you… I know everything now, Haley. Every secret, every lie, every scheme. I headed for the door. See you at work on Monday. Don't be late. Outside, Patrick was waiting in his car. How'd it go? Phase 1 complete, I smiled. Now for the real test. Family dinner tomorrow night. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Enjoying? No. I watched the lights come on in Haley's window. But sometimes the hardest lessons are the most necessary ones. I can't believe you're making us eat here, Aunt Maria hissed, looking around the casual family restaurant with barely concealed disdain. What's wrong with it? I asked innocently. The portions are generous, and it's within everyone's new budget. Our first official family dinner under the new arrangement was going exactly as I'd expected. Haley sat quietly in her work clothes, exhausted from her first week of actual employment. Mum and Dad kept exchanging nervous glances, while Aunt Maria looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. I got my first paycheck today, Haley announced suddenly. It seemed small. That's because of taxes, I explained, and the automatic deductions for your repayment plan. Speaking of plans, Aunt Maria straightened up. I've been thinking about my consulting business. Your non-existent consulting business? I raised an eyebrow. The one you used to launder money? The table fell silent. Even the nearby diners seemed to pause. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered fiercely. I pulled out my tablet. Really? Should we discuss the offshore accounts? The fake invoices? The reason you pushed so hard for Haley to get that money? Dad's fork clattered onto his plate. Maria, what is she talking about? Nothing. She's just trying to… I have proof, I cut in, of everything. Would you like me to share it with the IRS, or would you prefer to stick to our agreement? Aunt Maria's face crumpled. For the first time in my life, I saw her mask completely slip. "I needed the money," she whispered. "After Tom left, I couldn't let anyone know we were struggling." "So, you sacrificed my future to maintain appearances?" I leaned forward. "Convinced my parents to give away my college fund to cover your tracks?" "Veronica," Mom reached for my hand. "Please." "No, Mom. It's time for the truth." I turned back to Aunt Maria. "You didn't care about Haley's education. You needed that money to cover your debts before they caught up with you. And you used your own daughter to do it." Haley's head snapped up. "What?" "Tell her, Aunt Maria. Tell her why you really pushed her to go to Harvard. Why you encouraged her to spend so extravagantly." "Mom?" Haley's voice cracked. "Is that true?" Aunt Maria burst into tears. "I was trying to protect us, our lifestyle, our status. Your lies," I finished. "And now look where we all are. Mum and Dad nearly lost their house. Haley wasted 2 years. And me?" I laughed softly. "Well, I guess I should thank you." "Thank her?" Dad looked confused. "If you hadn't taken my future away, I might never have built my own." I signaled the waiter. "By the way, I'm buying the tech company that's trying to acquire us. The papers will be signed next week." "Buying them?" Patrick, who'd been quietly observing, sat up straighter. "You never mentioned—" "Because some of us know how to keep business matters private," I said pointedly. "The deal makes me the majority shareholder in both companies. Combined value, just north of $1 billion. Mum's water glass tipped over, spreading across the table. No one moved to clean it up. $1 billion, Haley whispered. "Yes, built from scratch, while you were finding yourself in Thailand." I started dabbing at the spilled water with my napkin. "But money isn't the point. Trust is, family is, and you all failed spectacularly at both." "We can change," Mom said quietly. "We are changing." "Yes, you are, because now you have no choice." I stood up. "Aunt Maria, expect a visit from my forensic accountants tomorrow. Haley, you're getting promoted to project coordinator, if you can maintain perfect attendance for 3 months. Mom, Dad, the mortgage is officially paid off, but the financial oversight continues." "And what do you get out of all this?" Aunt Maria asked bitterly. I smiled, gathering my things. "The satisfaction of watching you all learn the lessons you should have taught me. That actions have consequences, that hard work matters more than appearances, and that true family doesn't steal from each other." "Where are you going?" Dad called, as I headed for the door. "Board meeting," I replied, without turning around. "Some of us still have empires to run." Patrick caught up with me in the parking lot. "That was brutal. That was necessary," I corrected, unlocking my car. "Sometimes rock bottom has a basement, and they needed to see it." "And now?" I looked back at the restaurant window, where my family sat in stunned silence, their world permanently altered. "Now they rebuild," I said. "On my terms, with my rules, and maybe, just maybe, they'll learn something this time." "And you?" Patrick asked softly. "What have you learned?" I started the engine, smiling as my phone lit up with notifications about tomorrow's merger. That revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, piece by painful piece. "Sign here." I slid the last document across my desk to Haley. "This makes you a junior partner in the education division." She stared at the paper, then at me. "Are you sure about this?" Through my office window, I could see the city skyline, now dotted with buildings bearing my company's logo. On my desk sat a framed photo from last week's charity gala, my whole family, dressed modestly but professionally, actually smiling genuine smiles. "You've earned it," I said. "Perfect attendance for a year, completed all the financial literacy courses, built the youth outreach program from scratch." "With your guidance," she added quietly. "True. But you did the work. I leaned back in my chair. Something you never had to do before. A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom entered carrying spreadsheets. The quarterly family budget reports are ready for review. How's Aunt Maria doing? Haley asked. Better. Mom sat down. The therapy is helping. And the community service at the Women's Financial Literacy Center. She's actually making a difference. Amazing what happens when you channel manipulation into motivation, I mused. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Meeting with the small business advisor went well. Ready to present my startup plan. Dad's really serious about this new venture, I showed them the message. He's different now, Mom said. We all are. She hesitated. Veronica, about the family dinner tonight. Don't worry, I smiled. We can have it at the country club. They both stared at me. Really? Haley asked. You've all stayed within budget for 6 months. Consider it a reward. I stood up. Besides, I bought the place last week. Got tired of their elitist membership policies. Mom shook her head. Sometimes I forget how powerful you've become. Not powerful, I corrected. Successful. There's a difference. Power is what Aunt Maria craved. Success is what I built. While making us build ourselves back up, Haley added. Exactly. I checked my watch. Speaking of building, don't you have a presentation to prepare for? Haley jumped up. Right, the new scholarship program. After she left, Mom lingered. I found something yesterday, cleaning out the attic. She placed a worn envelope on my desk, my old college acceptance letters. MIT, Georgia Tech, Stanford. She touched them gently. We were so wrong, Veronica. So terribly wrong. Yes, you were. I picked up the MIT letter. But look where it led. To you becoming a billionaire? To all of us learning what really matters. I opened my laptop, showing her the latest family financial report. Dad's credit score is now higher than it's ever been. Haley's savings account actually has savings in it. Aunt Maria is helping other women avoid the mistakes she made. And us? Mom asked softly. You and Dad finally understand the difference between enabling and supporting. I closed the laptop. That's worth more than any amount of money. Patrick appeared in the doorway. Ready for the board meeting? Almost. I turned to Mom. Will you be okay handling the family trust disbursements this quarter? She straightened proudly. I haven't made a single accounting error in 8 months. I know. I hugged her. That's why I'm letting you do it solo this time. After she left, Patrick sat down. You know, when this all started, I thought you were just out for revenge. So did I. I looked at the family photo again. But somewhere along the way, it became about reconstruction, about building something better from the ruins of what they destroyed. Including them? Especially them. I gathered my files for the board meeting. They needed to fall apart to rebuild properly, to understand that success isn't about appearances or shortcuts. And now we're actually becoming the family we pretended to be. I smiled, just with better financial habits and a lot more honesty. Speaking of honesty, Patrick grinned. Wait until they hear about the education initiative you're launching. Free STEM education for 5,000 underprivileged students? I picked up my tablet. That's tomorrow's surprise, one step at a time. As we headed to the boardroom, I passed Haley, giving a tour to potential scholarship recipients. Aunt Maria was leading a financial literacy workshop in the conference room. Dad was in the innovation lab, sketching out his business plan. They weren't perfect. Neither was I. But we were better. Stronger, wiser, more genuine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better, about turning betrayal into betterment, hurt into healing, and broken trust into something stronger than before. And as I walked into the boardroom, ready to change more lives through education, I realized that success really is the best revenge, especially when it lifts everyone up along the way.